Water parks once filled with the joy of summer, laughter, and screams of excitement can sometimes hide a darker side. Across the United States, many abandoned or long-closed water parks are said to be haunted by former visitors, staff, or tragic accidents that never left. From flickering lights along empty slides, to phantom screams echoing in abandoned wave pools, and shadowy figures lurking where laughter once rang. These parks are far more than fun destinations. They are haunted playgrounds for the restless. Tonight, we dive into the eerie depths of 25 of the most haunted water parks in the U.S., where the thrill of the past has turned into chilling encounters. Action Park in Vernon, New Jersey, earned its notorious nickname decades ago, the Accident Park, known for its dangerous slides, rickety rides, and a long history of injuries. The park closed and reopened under new management several times, but its legacy of chaos remains embedded in local lore. Today, the abandoned sections of Action Park are said to harbor more than memories of thrill-seeking summers. Paranormal enthusiasts, urban explorers, and local storytellers report eerie phenomena, claiming that the spirits of past visitors linger long after the last ride stopped operating. Many who venture into the park describe hearing ghostly screams echoing across the empty grounds. These aren't the normal shouts of children or thrill-seekers. Witnesses say the cries carry a sense of urgency, panic, and despair, as if replaying tragic moments from the park's hazardous history. The screams often appear randomly, fading just as quickly as they emerge, leaving explorers frozen and unsure if the sound was real or imagined. Some report that the screams intensify near certain rides, particularly those that were known for accidents, suggesting that residual energy of past events has been imprinted on the park's physical structures. Phantom rides are another frequent occurrence. Abandoned roller coasters, slides, and water attractions have been reported operating seemingly on their own. Witnesses describe seeing carriages gliding along tracks, empty slides moving with invisible riders, and water features flowing despite the pumps being disconnected. The rides appear to function without power or maintenance, moving with a mechanical precision that seems impossible. Visitors often notice that the sounds of the rides, clanging metal, rushing water, or creaking wood, echo unnaturally, amplifying the sense that the park is alive with unseen forces. Apparitions of past patrons add a deeply unsettling dimension to the hauntings. Visitors describe fleeting glimpses of people dressed in swimsuits, summer clothing, and park uniforms wandering the grounds. These figures often appear engaged in activities reminiscent of the park's heyday, climbing stairs, racing down slides, or laughing in mid-air on a swing. Many explorers report seeing figures pause mid-motion, glance toward them, and then vanish suddenly, leaving an eerie silence in their wake. The apparitions are often partial, glimpsed only in the corner of an eye, or distorted by shadows and light, creating a disorienting and unnerving atmosphere. Some of the most chilling experiences involve areas of the park where serious accidents occur. Local lore suggests that certain slides, pools, and roller coaster sections became hotspots for paranormal activity due to the trauma associated with them. Visitors report sudden cold drafts, the sensation of being touched by unseen hands, or the feeling of being watched while alone in these locations. Equipment such as lockers, benches, and broken rides occasionally shift or tilt, as if influenced by invisible forces. These subtle interactions reinforce the sense that the spirits of those who suffered or never left are tethered to the park. Echoing footsteps are commonly reported throughout Action Park. Explorers describe hearing the sound of sneakers on concrete, boots on metal platforms, or splashing in empty pools. Even when completely alone, the footsteps often follow, pause, or approach from directions that seem impossible, adding to the sensation of unseen company. In some instances, footsteps climb stairways, move along ride tracks, or circle around the perimeter, reinforcing the belief that the park remains active with entities trapped in the liminal space between life and death. Paranormal investigators have documented inexplicable sounds, shadows, and temperature anomalies across the park. Cold spots appear without warning, sometimes accompanied by the scent of chlorine, sunscreen, or summer grass, a haunting reminder of the park's vibrant past. Whispered voices and low murmurs are frequently captured on electronic voice phenomena (EVP) recordings, often repeating phrases like "help me" or "don't go." Investigators suggest that these echoes are tied to the park's tumultuous history, a residual energy replaying moments of fear and chaos. The architecture of the park itself seems to amplify the haunting. Long, narrow corridors of the indoor water attractions create claustrophobic spaces where sounds reverberate. Shadows stretch unnaturally, and even slight movements are magnified. Elevated platforms, staircases, and roller coaster tracks give the impression of multiple layers of activity, as if past patrons continue to navigate the park alongside the living. The layout encourages a sense of disorientation, making it difficult to distinguish between real and supernatural activity. Light and shadow play a significant role in the park's spectral presence. Visitors report seeing sudden flashes of movement along ride tracks, shimmering figures near pools, and silhouettes cast by moonlight that do not correspond to any physical object. These visual anomalies often coincide with sounds of laughter, screams, or the mechanical groans of phantom rides. Some explorers claim to feel brief, inexplicable touches, like a hand on the shoulder or a brush past the arm, despite the absence of anyone nearby. Even the surrounding grounds contribute to the eerie atmosphere. Parking lots, maintenance sheds, and abandoned concession stands are frequently cited as locations of intense activity. Witnesses report hearing rattling gates, footsteps approaching from the dark, and faint voices calling out to them. Occasionally, the scent of popcorn, sunscreen, or chlorine lingers in the air, even in areas where no equipment remains, adding a sensory layer to the haunting that ties directly to the park's past. Those who visit Action Park today describe a mixture of fear, fascination, and respect. The combination of ghostly screams, phantom rides, apparitions of past patrons, cold drafts, and shadowy movements creates an environment charged with the echoes of the past. Even long after the last visitor left, the park continues to replay fragments of its dangerous, chaotic history, as if the spirits of thrill seekers and employees remain trapped within its structures. Walking through the abandoned park, one feels the weight of countless memories, accidents, and laughter reverberating in the air. Shadowy figures drift past broken rides, ghostly screams echo across empty pools, and unseen hands interact with the environment, reminding visitors that some energies are not easily released. Action Park remains a place where the line between thrill and terror blurs. A site where the past refuses to fade, and the spirits of those who experienced its infamous chaos continue to linger. Lake Dolores Water Park in Newberry Springs, California, sits as a ghostly remnant of a once popular summer destination. Once filled with laughter, the sound of rushing water, and the thrill of slides. The park has long been abandoned, leaving behind rusted structures and decaying attractions. Yet, despite its emptiness, locals and visitors report strange phenomena that suggest the park has never truly been deserted. Shadowy figures, unexplained lights, and disembodied sounds create an atmosphere that feels frozen between the past and present, as if the echoes of happier days linger in the air. Those who explore the park at night often describe seeing silhouettes moving among the slides and pools. At first glance, the figures seem like fleeting shadows cast by passing cars or the occasional moonlight. But witnesses insist these are not ordinary shadows. The shapes move independently of natural light, sometimes climbing stairs, traversing the slides, or wandering the pool decks. Some explorers have reported seeing multiple figures at once, their movements deliberate, as though reenacting scenes from the park's operational days. Faint laughter is another commonly reported phenomenon. Unlike normal echoes that carry from distant sources, this laughter seems to emanate from nowhere, shifting in direction and intensity as though circling those who hear it. Some describe it as the laughter of children, high-pitched and joyous, while others hear the chuckling of adults, perhaps lifeguards or patrons from decades past. The laughter rarely lasts long, fading into silence as abruptly as it begins, but it leaves a lingering sense of presence. The unmistakable feeling that the park is still inhabited in some unseen way. Unexplained lights appear frequently among the ruins. Visitors report seeing soft glows at the top of slides, lights flashing inside the old concession stands, or mysterious beams cutting through the darkness near abandoned ride areas. The lights often flicker or change intensity, sometimes revealing brief glimpses of forms or shadows, only to vanish moments later. Investigators confirm that the park's electrical systems are long disconnected, and no modern sources could account for the phenomenon, suggesting that the lights may be tied to paranormal energy lingering in the area. The park's structures themselves seem to amplify these experiences. Rusted slides creak under the weight of unseen riders. Pools that once held water now stand dry but echo with phantom splashes, and staircases lead to nowhere, yet produce the sound of footsteps. Visitors report the sensation of being watched, an uneasy feeling that someone or something follows them as they explore. Some describe brief brushes of cold air on their arms or necks, sudden chills that appear without warning, or the sensation of being nudged aside by invisible hands. Shadowy figures are sometimes captured on camera, though often only fleetingly, appearing as dark smudges or translucent forms moving against the decayed backdrops of the slides. Paranormal investigators who have visited the site report sudden temperature drops, EVP recordings of whispered words, and the feeling of a presence hovering close by. In some cases, recordings reveal sounds of running water and laughter, even though the pumps have been shut off for decades. These phenomena suggest that the park retains echoes of its active past, replaying fragments of its former life in ways that both fascinate and frighten. The abandoned rides and attractions serve as focal points for many of these reports. Large slides, now rusted and overgrown, seem to act as conduits for the park's residual energy. Witnesses have seen shadowy figures climbing the steps of slides, pausing at the top and then disappearing mid-descent. Water play areas and fountains, even when dry, have been reported to emit the sound of rushing water and splashes, as if phantom children are still playing. Concession areas and picnic pavilions sometimes appear lit, casting shadows of patrons who vanish when approached. Even the surrounding grounds contribute to the unsettling atmosphere. Parking lots, empty streets leading to the park, and surrounding desert landscapes carry a sense of desolation that is both tangible and eerie. Explorers note the sudden appearance of footprints in sand or dust where none had been before. Cold drafts swirling in the open desert air, and the sensation of being followed along abandoned pathways. These peripheral experiences enhance the feeling that Lake Dolores Water Park is not simply abandoned but inhabited by echoes of its past. Locals recount stories passed down from those who worked or visited the park in its prime. Employees remember chaotic summer days, accidents, and moments of joy that may have left emotional imprints in the area. Visitors recall long days of sun, laughter, and thrills. Paranormal enthusiasts believe that these intense emotions, both happy and fearful, contributed to the creation of lingering energies, capable of producing the shadowy figures, laughter, and unexplained lights seen today. Those brave enough to wander the grounds after dark often describe a mixture of fear, wonder, and disbelief. The combination of shadowy forms, disembodied laughter, cold drafts, and flickering lights creates a space that feels suspended in time, a haunting snapshot of a park that has long since ceased operations. Some leave quickly, unnerved by the intensity of the experience, while others document their visits, capturing glimpses of fleeting figures and unexplained phenomena on video and photographs. Lake Dolores Water Park remains a powerful site for paranormal activity. Shadowy figures drift among the slides, laughter echoes in the empty pools, and unexplained lights illuminate corridors of a forgotten summer paradise. The park stands as a haunting reminder that even in the absence of life, the memory of joy, fear, and chaos can persist, leaving traces that defy explanation. Visitors often report that once they step inside the park's grounds, it feels as though the past is watching, replaying itself in fragments, and perhaps never fully letting go. Those who explore Lake Dolores Water Park walk away with stories that blur the line between reality and the supernatural. The park, though abandoned, pulses with unseen life, drawing attention from both paranormal investigators and curious travelers alike. Every shadow, whisper, and flicker of light serves as a reminder that the echoes of laughter, fear, and activity can linger long after the final summer day has passed, leaving the sight of the park a hauntingly unforgettable experience. Six Flags Atlantis in Hollywood, Florida, once a vibrant water park and amusement destination, now lies in eerie silence, abandoned for decades. Its towering slides, empty pools, and overgrown pathways stand as a haunting reminder of a place that once rang with laughter, splashes, and excitement. Despite its deserted state, visitors and paranormal enthusiasts report unsettling phenomena, suggesting that the park is far from lifeless. Shadowy figures, disembodied voices, moving slides, and ghostly children are said to populate the grounds, leaving those who explore it with experiences that defy explanation. Guests who venture into the park at night frequently describe hearing voices echoing across empty pools. These sounds are often unrecognizable at first, a mix of laughter, splashes, and distant chatter, but seem unmistakably human. Some witnesses insist that the voices belong to children, playing and shouting as they did decades ago, while others hear adults calling out names or giving instructions, as if lifeguards and staff still patrol the grounds. The sounds are never constant, appearing and disappearing without any discernible source, amplifying the park's already unsettling atmosphere. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves the park's water slides. Even with pumps long disconnected and gates locked, visitors have seen slides moving on their own. Shadows and fleeting shapes appear to descend the slides, and some explorers claim to hear the rush of water and screams of joy, as if the rides are in operation once more. Cameras left in the park occasionally capture these movements, blurred forms streaking down slides or silhouettes at the top, poised to descend, only to vanish when approached. These events are never predictable, occurring sporadically, and often leaving those who witness them shaken. Ghostly children seem to inhabit the park's abandoned playgrounds and pools. Visitors report small figures darting between slides, climbing ladders, or running across the empty grounds. The figures are often described as translucent, barely visible, yet their movements are unmistakable. Some explorers feel a sudden touch on their arm or the brushing of an invisible hand, as if the children are acknowledging their presence. The laughter that accompanies these figures is often high-pitched and distant, yet eerily close at the same time, creating the sense that the park is alive with spectral activity. The pools themselves, long drained and covered in algae, are central to many reports. Footsteps echo across the empty decks, and the sound of splashing water is frequently heard when no one is nearby. Witnesses describe a feeling of weightless energy in these areas, as if the memory of the water, laughter, and chaos of busy summer days has become trapped, replaying itself in the empty spaces. Some explorers have even captured faint images of figures standing or walking in the shallow pools, appearing momentarily before fading into the still air. The surrounding environment enhances the park's haunting qualities. Rusted metal railings creak under the wind, abandoned concession stands are filled with decaying debris, and overgrown pathways lead through what was once a bustling park. Some report cold drafts moving through the park, sudden chills that appear without warning, and a sense of being watched from the shadows. Even in the absence of wind or other natural causes, the sensation of unseen presence is strong, creating an unnerving environment that blurs the line between reality and the supernatural. Paranormal investigators visiting the park have documented strange lights flickering in areas where electrical systems have long been disabled. Soft, ghostly whispers are recorded on EVP devices, often repeating the names of children or staff, or echoing fragments of conversations from decades past. Investigators report feelings of anxiety, sadness, or playful energy in different areas, suggesting that the park retains echoes of its history, moments of joy, fear, and activity that continue to manifest in ghostly ways. Abandoned rides, particularly the larger slides, serve as focal points for these hauntings. Witnesses have seen shapes ascending staircases, pausing at the top, and then disappearing mid-slide. The swings and smaller play structures sometimes move on their own, rocking back and forth as though propelled by unseen hands. Even the snack bars and ticket booths occasionally seem animated by invisible patrons, with sliding windows moving, cash drawers opening, or faint, unexplainable noises coming from empty counters. Despite the park's long abandonment, local lore and visitor accounts suggest that Six Flags Atlantis is a repository of residual energy, intense emotions, thrills, excitement, accidents, and minor conflicts may have left emotional imprints, producing the persistent hauntings. Locals report that those who linger too long often feel compelled to leave, unnerved by the feeling that unseen eyes follow them. That laughter and splashes are not simply memories, but active echoes of something still present. Even casual explorers are often struck by the surreal blend of abandonment and animation. Empty pools filled with debris suddenly echo with laughter. Rusted slides appear to move, and shadowy children dart through the grounds without warning. The combination of sounds, sights, and sensations produces a vivid sense of the past intruding upon the present, leaving an indelible impression on those who witness it. Six Flags Atlantis continues to draw curiosity seekers, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts from around the region. Each visit reinforces the park's reputation as more than just a relic of Florida's amusement history. It is a place where the echoes of joy, fear, and human activity persist in ways that are both captivating and terrifying. Shadowy figures, ghostly children, moving slides, and disembodied laughter create a haunting environment that blurs the boundary between the living and the dead, leaving the park a chilling yet fascinating destination for those drawn to the supernatural. Visitors consistently leave with stories that are difficult to forget. The combination of visual apparitions, unexplained sounds, and the feeling of unseen presence ensures that Six Flags Atlantis remains a legendary site for hauntings. While abandoned to the outside world, inside its gates, the spirit of the park is very much alive, echoing the thrill, joy, and mystery of its forgotten days in ways that defy explanation and continue to intrigue all who dare to enter. Joyland Water Park in Lubbock, Texas, once a bustling destination for families and thrill seekers, now sits abandoned, its rides and pools silent and decaying under the Texas sun. Despite its closure, the park is far from lifeless. Locals and paranormal enthusiasts report chilling phenomena that suggest the echoes of the park's lively past linger, manifesting as phantom screams, shadowy figures, and inexplicable movements that defy explanation. Those who venture into Joyland after hours often leave with stories that blur the line between reality and the supernatural. The wave pool, once the heart of summer excitement, is a frequent site of paranormal activity. Visitors report hearing screams of delight and terror coming from the empty water, echoes that sound uncannily real despite the complete absence of waves or people. Some describe these sounds as children laughing, splashing, and shouting, while others insist that adult voices can be heard calling out instructions or warnings, as if lifeguards and guests still occupy the area. The audio seems to come from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously, bouncing across the empty pool deck and making it impossible to pinpoint a source. Many who hear the sounds report a feeling of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow their every step, heightening the sense of unease. Beyond the wave pool, the parking lot has become a focal point for strange sightings. Visitors recount seeing apparitions moving between the rows of abandoned cars and empty asphalt, figures that are sometimes blurry and indistinct, and at other times surprisingly detailed. Some claim to have seen former park employees walking purposefully across the lot, wiping imaginary counters, or performing tasks long forgotten. These figures vanish when approached, leaving only the faint impression that someone or something was present moments before. Others report shadowy forms darting between vehicles, moving at impossible speeds or disappearing entirely when caught in a flashlight beam. The combination of visual and auditory phenomena creates a disorienting environment, as though the park's past is overlapping with the present in unpredictable ways. The rides themselves, particularly the towering slides, are frequently reported as sites of activity, even without water running or pumps active. Visitors describe seeing shadowy forms ascending staircases or perched at the top of slides, poised to descend. Some witnesses hear the rush of water or the sound of sliding metal as if the rides are in use, but upon closer inspection, the slides remain empty and still. Cameras left behind during explorations occasionally capture fleeting images of translucent figures on the slides, moving down and vanishing before anyone can approach. These images, often blurred and ghost-like, corroborate the accounts of multiple visitors who swear they saw activity that could not be explained by wind, wildlife, or imagination. The park's walkways, concession stands, and rest areas are no less active. Phantom footsteps echo through empty corridors. Objects appear to shift slightly on their own, and cold drafts move inexplicably through the air. Explorers report a mix of emotions, playfulness, fear, nostalgia that seem to emanate from the surroundings themselves. Some even hear faint whispers, calling names or repeating phrases associated with Joyland's operational days. Paranormal investigators suggest that these may be residual energies, the emotional imprints of countless joyful and anxious moments stored in the environment and replaying themselves in subtle, ghostly ways. Other visitors report encounters with shadowy children, darting along empty paths, climbing ladders, and sliding down long deserted slides. These figures are often described as translucent, flickering between visibility and invisibility, accompanied by sounds of laughter or running. Some explorers feel the sensation of being touched by unseen hands or brushed by passing figures. Experiences that leave a lingering chill and a sense that the park is alive with invisible activity. The ghostly children appear both playful and fleeting, embodying the energy of Joyland's past while remaining untouchable in the present. Concession areas and ticket booths, though long abandoned, are also associated with strange activity. Windows slide open as if someone is serving food. Cash drawers rattle, and faint clinks of coins can be heard. These events are brief and sporadic, but enough to convince those who witness them that the park is imbued with an active, unseen presence. Even the rusted, silent rides sometimes seem to hum or creak in rhythms that cannot be explained by wind or decay, further reinforcing the idea that something intangible lingers in the park. Investigators and thrill-seekers alike note that the park's energy is both oppressive and oddly playful. Areas can shift from eerie silence to sudden bursts of sound and movement without warning. Shadowy figures may appear in peripheral vision, vanish when directly observed, and reappear elsewhere, creating a sense that the park is intentionally disorienting. Cold spots, fleeting glimpses, and inexplicable sounds combine to produce a persistent feeling of unease and anticipation, leaving visitors hyper-aware of their surroundings and unnervingly aware of unseen observers. Despite the danger and unease, Joyland Water Park continues to draw curiosity seekers, paranormal enthusiasts, and thrill seekers. The combination of abandoned infrastructure, vivid memories of a bustling past, and persistent hauntings makes it an iconic location for those drawn to the supernatural. Phantom screams from the wave pool, apparitions in the parking lot, shadowy figures on slides, and disembodied laughter all create a compelling and terrifying experience. Visitors often leave with stories that defy logic. The lingering echoes of Joyland's past joyful screams, rushing water, unseen hands, and playful shadows make it clear that while the park may be abandoned to the living, it remains animated by memories, emotions, and forces beyond human understanding. Joyland Water Park stands as a chilling testament to how places of laughter and excitement can continue to resonate long after their doors have closed, leaving behind a haunting legacy that captivates and terrifies all who dare to explore it. Big Surf, located in Tempe, Arizona, was once a lively destination for families seeking fun, sun, and thrilling water rides. Its wave pools and lazy rivers echoed with laughter, splashing, and the hum of summer excitement. Today, the park stands largely abandoned, its slides silent and pools stagnant, Yet those who visit after hours insist that it is far from lifeless. Reports of ghostly figures, unexplained lights, and eerie echoes suggest that Big Surf retains the memories of its vibrant past, manifesting in ways that are both fascinating and unnerving. Visitors frequently recount seeing apparitions of swimmers dressed in 1970s-style swimwear, gliding across the empty pools or climbing the long deserted slides. These figures appear translucent, flickering between clarity and invisibility, as though caught between dimensions. Some have been seen wading through the wave pool, their laughter rising and falling without explanation. Others are reported walking along the pool decks, carrying towels or flotation devices, and vanishing when approached. The apparitions are often accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, cold spots that seem to track the observer's movements, leaving an unmistakable feeling of being watched. Unexplained lights are another frequent phenomenon at Big Surf. Visitors report small, glowing orbs hovering above the pools or darting between the slides at night. These lights move independently of wind or environmental factors, often disappearing the moment they are approached. Some witnesses describe the orbs forming shapes that resemble swimmers or playful figures from the park's heyday. Cameras set up to document these lights occasionally capture fleeting images of humanoid forms, adding to the eerie authenticity of the sightings. Echoes of music and announcements from the park's operational years are also commonly reported. Guests walking through empty corridors claim to hear the faint strains of 1970s pop music or the familiar calls of lifeguards warning swimmers. These sounds often emerge from areas where no speakers or devices exist, sometimes moving from one location to another as if carried by invisible forces. Many who hear the music report feeling a mix of nostalgia and unease, as though the park itself is replaying moments from its past for unseen spectators. The park slides and attractions seem particularly active. The iconic water slides, once packed with thrill-seekers, are now silent but not empty. Witnesses describe seeing shadowy figures ascending staircases or pausing at the top before vanishing. Some report hearing the rush of water or the squeal of plastic tubes, despite all pumps being inactive. Occasional camera footage corroborates these accounts, capturing faint, translucent figures descending the slides, moving faster than any human could, then dissolving into thin air at the bottom. The effect is both thrilling and terrifying, giving the impression that Big Surf's past visitors continue to enjoy the park long after its closure. Other areas of the park, such as concession stands, locker rooms, and snack bars, also host strange activity. Doors that should be locked slide open, drawers rattle as if coins are being counted, and objects sometimes shift slightly on their own. Patrons exploring these spaces report hearing footsteps echoing through empty halls, whispers of conversations, and the occasional call of a name. Investigators suggest these occurrences may be residual energies left behind by the park's former visitors. Memories imprinted into the environment and replaying themselves in subtle, haunting ways. The wave pool is perhaps the most unnerving sight. Guests describe the water's surface rippling without wind or movement, and phantom screams and splashes reverberating across the empty area. Some claim to see swimmers wading or diving into the pool, only to vanish when approached. The echoing sounds of joy, fear, and surprise combine to create a surreal auditory experience, leaving visitors disoriented and hyper-aware of their surroundings. The wave pool appears to act as a conduit for the park's past energy, drawing the living into encounters with the echoes of bygone summers. The abandoned parking lots and walkways surrounding Big Surf also exhibit paranormal phenomena. Shadowy figures have been seen moving between rusted rides and empty spaces, often darting out of sight when noticed. Unexplained lights flicker along the walkways, and the occasional metallic creak or thud is heard, as if rides are operating invisibly. Many report a sensation of being observed, even when completely alone, and some describe brief touches or breezes that seem to follow them, adding a physical dimension to the otherwise visual and auditory encounters. Paranormal investigators visiting Big Surf note that the park's energy feels both playful and eerie. A combination of ghostly laughter, moving figures, unexplained sounds, and sudden temperature shifts creates a disorienting atmosphere, as if the park exists simultaneously in two realities. Areas can shift from eerie silence to bursts of sound and movement without warning, suggesting that the energy within Big Surf is not only residual but also reactive, responding to the presence of visitors. Despite the danger and unease, Big Surf continues to draw explorers, thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts. The park's abandoned attractions, combined with persistent reports of ghostly activity, make it an iconic site for those interested in the supernatural. Phantom swimmers, mysterious lights, echoes of music, and moving objects all create an immersive and unsettling experience, revealing that the joy and excitement of the past persist in spectral form. Those who leave Big Surf often do so with a lingering sense of awe and fear. The park, though silent to the living, vibrates with the energy of countless past visitors, replaying moments of joy, thrill, and human activity in ghostly form. Big Surf Water Park stands as a chilling reminder that some places, even when abandoned, never truly die. They continue to live on in memory, energy, and spirit, haunting all who dare to step inside its deserted gates. Waterworld, USA, once a bustling water park in Concord, California, was famous for its towering slides, expansive wave pools, and vibrant summer crowds. Families flocked to the park for a day of fun, laughter, and sun-soaked excitement. Today, much of the park lies abandoned, with peeling paint, stagnant pools, and rusting metal marking the passage of time. Yet despite its emptiness, those who venture into Waterworld USA report that the park is far from lifeless. Visitors and paranormal enthusiasts alike have reported ghostly activity, suggesting that the echoes of past employees and guests continue to linger in the deserted park. Several accounts describe shadowy figures moving along the walkways and near the pools. Witnesses often see these silhouettes darting between the slides or standing near the edge of the wave pool, only to vanish when approached. Some figures appear to mimic the motions of lifeguards from decades past, scanning the pools as if on duty, while others move like park staff going about unseen tasks. These apparitions are often described as translucent and shifting, flickering between visibility and invisibility. The presence of these figures is usually accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, cold gusts of air, and an unsettling sensation of being watched, even in the absence of any other person. Splashing sounds are another common phenomenon at Waterworld USA. Visitors have reported hearing the unmistakable rush of water and the impact of bodies hitting the surface. Yet upon inspection, the pools remain perfectly still. The sound of water slapping against the sides of slides and the echo of laughter often emerge from completely empty areas. These auditory experiences are not localized to one section of the park. They can move from the wave pool to the lazy river, creating a disorienting and eerie effect. Cameras and recording devices have occasionally captured fleeting glimpses of ripples forming without wind or disturbance, lending credibility to eyewitness accounts. Shadowy forms are not limited to walkways and pools. The food courts, locker rooms, and snack bars of Waterworld USA have also been sites of strange activity. Doors open and close on their own, chairs slide across floors, and objects such as towels or pool toys shift inexplicably. Some visitors report hearing the faint sounds of conversation or orders being taken, even though the facilities have been empty for years. These ghostly echoes often include familiar phrases and commands reminiscent of lifeguards and staff instructing patrons or managing safety, as if the park itself is replaying its past in spectral form. The slides, once packed with screaming children and thrill seekers, are frequently the focus of paranormal encounters. Witnesses report seeing translucent figures climbing the stairs or pausing at the top, looking down as though preparing to descend. In some cases, figures have been caught on security cameras moving swiftly down slides, only to vanish before reaching the bottom. Others describe feeling a rush of cold air or a brief sense of weightlessness, as if a ghostly body had just slid past them. Even the tallest slides, now rusted and lifeless, appear to carry the energy of past visitors, creating an unsettling combination of nostalgia and fear for those who approach. The wave pool, in particular, is a hotspot for ghostly activity. Visitors have described hearing the sudden rise and fall of waves, along with laughter, splashing, and the sounds of children playing, despite the pool being drained or stagnant. Some report seeing shadowy figures gliding through the water or standing at the edges. Their presence accompanied by a feeling of intense unease. Cold spots and brief gusts of wind often coincide with these sightings, heightening the impression that the pool is haunted by lingering energy from the park's operational days. Even areas outside the central attractions are affected. Walkways, parking lots, and smaller pools show signs of paranormal presence. Witnesses describe seeing figures walking between abandoned lifeguard towers, disappearing into empty corridors, and hearing faint echoes of footsteps behind them. Unexplained lights occasionally flicker in these areas, casting shadows that move independently of any natural source. Some visitors have reported brief touches or brushing sensations along their arms, creating a physical reminder that the park's energy extends beyond the visual and auditory. Paranormal investigators visiting Waterworld USA have noted that the park seems to resonate with residual energy, particularly around former lifeguard stations, the wave pool, and the tallest slides. The combination of ghostly apparitions, unexplained sounds, sudden temperature changes, and fleeting touches produces a highly immersive experience. Areas that appear completely silent and abandoned can suddenly become filled with movement, sound, and sensation, creating an eerie sense of dual realities coexisting in the same space. Despite the unsettling experiences, Waterworld USA continues to attract visitors curious about its haunted history. Ghost hunters, urban explorers, and thrill seekers alike are drawn to the park's abandoned attractions, eager to witness the mysterious phenomena themselves. Shadowy lifeguards, phantom swimmers, and unexplained splashes create an immersive, spine-chilling environment that connects the living to the energy of the park's past. For those who leave Waterworld USA after nightfall, the experience lingers. The cold drafts, echoing laughter, and glimpses of shadowy figures remain etched in memory. A reminder that the park's history is not confined to the past. In this deserted amusement landscape, the excitement, vigilance, and joy of countless former visitors continue to exist in spectral form, haunting the empty walkways, slides, and pools. Waterworld USA stands as a chilling testament to the persistence of memory and energy, proving that even in abandonment, some places never truly die. They continue to live on, whispering their stories to anyone willing to listen. Action Park, located in Vernon, New Jersey, earned a reputation in the 1980s as the accident park for its daring rides and numerous injuries. But among thrill seekers, it was a place of unforgettable summer adventures. Today, most of the park lies abandoned, overtaken by nature and neglect. Yet some areas continue to draw attention for reasons far beyond mere history or curiosity. One of the park's most notorious attractions, the Alpine Slide, has developed a reputation not just for past danger, but for paranormal activity. Visitors and urban explorers claim the slide is haunted by the echoes of its past, with phantom riders, ghostly laughter, and figures that vanish mid-ride. The Alpine Slide, a long concrete track winding down a hillside, was once the centerpiece of adrenaline-fueled thrills. Riders would sit in small sleds, accelerating down twists and turns while hoping to avoid collisions or derailments. Even during the park's heyday, the ride was infamous for its accidents, drawing a mixture of fear, excitement, and local legends. Today, with the ride long abandoned, the area is quiet, overgrown, and eerie. Yet witnesses report that the energy of the Alpine Slide has not dissipated. The ghosts of thrill seekers past seem to linger along the concrete track, replaying their joy, terror, and laughter in spectral form. Numerous accounts describe seeing figures seated in invisible sleds, gliding down the slide at impossible speeds. Witnesses often report the sudden appearance of a shadowy rider, fully visible for a moment before vanishing into thin air. Sometimes the figures seem unaware of the living, continuing down the track as though following an unseen force or invisible rails. Some observers claim that these ghostly riders even collide, producing phantom sounds of crashes and splashes, though no one is actually on the ride. The apparitions are generally described as translucent but distinctly human in shape, and their expressions range from exhilaration to terror, reflecting the emotions of the slide's original riders. Ghostly laughter is one of the most commonly reported phenomena along the Alpine slide. Visitors often hear the unmistakable sound of joy and shrieks echoing through the hillside, particularly at dusk or nighttime. The laughter is sometimes accompanied by the hiss and rush of movement, giving the impression of sleds speeding down the track. The sounds are often disorienting, appearing louder at the top of the slide one moment and closer to the bottom the next, suggesting that the spirits are moving independently of natural laws. Investigators have noted that the echoes persist even in complete silence, with no wind, wildlife, or other sources to explain the noise. Figures are not limited to the slide itself. Some explorers report seeing shadows standing along the track's edges, watching the activity below, or lingering near the abandoned ticket booth and starting area. Others describe fleeting glimpses of people climbing the stairs to the top of the slide, only to disappear before reaching the summit. These apparitions often induce sudden drops in temperature, cold gusts of air, and an overwhelming sensation of being observed, even in areas devoid of other humans. The combination of sight, sound, and environmental anomalies creates a chilling experience that draws paranormal enthusiasts eager to witness the slide's haunted activity firsthand. The physical environment of the Alpine slide seems to interact with these supernatural occurrences. The concrete track, now cracked and overgrown with weeds, sometimes emits sounds reminiscent of sleds sliding or gravel shifting under weight. Urban explorers report that these noises are most pronounced when no one is nearby, suggesting that the slide itself acts as a conduit for residual energy. Some claim to have felt phantom touches, such as the rush of air over their arms as if a ghostly sled had passed, or the sensation of pressure on their shoulders as figures climb nearby stairs that are otherwise empty. Security cameras and recording devices set up by paranormal investigators have captured unusual anomalies. Audio recordings reveal bursts of laughter, faint whispers, and distant shrieks echoing along the hillside. Investigators note that these phenomena are concentrated around the slide itself, as if the attraction retains the memories of those who once rode it and refuses to let them go. Even local lore supports the Alpine slide's haunted reputation. Stories passed down over decades describe riders vanishing mysteriously, collisions with no witnesses, and strange sensations experienced by those who dared to walk near the ride after hours. While some tales have been exaggerated, the consistency of reports phantom riders, laughter, and vanishing figures suggests a persistent paranormal presence that defies easy explanation. Some locals believe that the dangers that made the Alpine slide infamous in life have carried over into the afterlife, creating an area where thrill, fear, and tragedy replay endlessly. Visitors who approach the Alpine slide today often feel a mixture of nostalgia and fear. The abandoned structures, overgrown foliage, and crumbling concrete create a setting perfectly suited for ghostly activity. Some report seeing shadowy riders appear without warning, their presence accompanied by laughter and the rushing sounds of movement. Others feel a chill or notice cold spots where no natural explanation exists. The combination of residual energy from past accidents and the vibrant memories of joy and excitement seems to give the slide a consciousness of its own, a liminal space where the living and the spectral intersect. The Alpine slide at Action Park is a haunting reminder of the park's complex history. Once a place of thrills and dangers, it now exists as a space where the echoes of the past are vivid and persistent. Phantom riders continue to race down the abandoned track, laughter fills the air, and figures vanish mid-slide, leaving observers questioning the line between memory and reality. For those who witness it, the experience is unforgettable, a glimpse into a place where the energy of the living refuses to fade, and the thrill of adventure has become eternal, etched into concrete and spirit alike. Even in abandonment, The alpine slide demonstrates that some places never truly die. They live on in echoes, shadows, and laughter, inviting anyone brave enough to witness the intersection of past thrills and present mysteries. The ghostly presence at Action Park's Alpine Slide serves as a chilling testament to the persistence of energy and memory. A playground where joy, fear, and the unexplained continue to coexist. Raging Waters in Sacramento, California, was once a bustling water park, known for its winding lazy river, towering slides, and pools filled with laughter and splashing. Families flocked to the park during the hot summer months, children shrieking with delight as they twisted down slides and floated along the gentle currents of the lazy river. But years after its closure, the park has taken on a far more sinister reputation. Locals and urban explorers report encounters with ghostly children, shadowy figures climbing slides, and splashes echoing across empty pools, leaving witnesses shaken and questioning what is real. The lazy river, which once provided a gentle, relaxing ride for families, is one of the most active areas for paranormal activity. Visitors describe seeing translucent figures of children drifting along the water, their small bodies moving as if propelled by an invisible current. At first, the apparitions appear playful, laughing and splashing in a way that mirrors the park's heyday, but the joy is often unsettling, as the children vanish when approached, leaving only ripples in the still water. Some explorers report the sound of faint giggling echoing along the riverbank, though no living children are present. Cold spots accompany these sightings, and cameras occasionally capture blurred, moving shapes in the water, shapes that disappear when playback is reviewed. The towering slides of Raging Waters are also sites of frequent spectral activity. Shadows are reported climbing the steps, ascending toward the top of slides that are long abandoned. Witnesses have described seeing dark, humanoid forms poised at the summits before vanishing entirely. At times, the sound of a rushing slide can be heard as though a sledding mat were in motion. Yet the slides are completely empty. Visitors who attempt to reach the top often report sudden feelings of unease, chills, and the sensation of being watched. The shadowy figures are generally fleeting but leave a lingering impression, as if the park itself refuses to release the memories of those who once experienced joy and thrill on these structures. Empty pools, stripped of their water and vitality, are not exempt from ghostly phenomena. Explorers have reported sudden, unexplained splashes and the sense that something has moved through the water, even when it has been drained or is nearly dry. Echoes of laughter and shouting sometimes fill the air, as though the pools retain the sounds of past summers. Audio recordings made by paranormal investigators have picked up the faint sound of children calling out names, indistinct but haunting, and occasional bursts of water movement that cannot be explained by natural causes. The combination of these auditory and visual phenomena contributes to the park's reputation as a haunted site. The park's abandoned pathways and landscaping also play host to unexplained activity. Along the walkways, faint footprints appear on dusty surfaces or damp areas, only to vanish without a trace. Some visitors report hearing the shuffle of movement behind them, or the patter of small feet, yet when they turn around, no one is there. Shadowy figures sometimes cross open spaces, disappearing when approached. Investigators suggest that the residual energy of so many people enjoying the park over decades may have left a kind of imprint, a lingering echo of past joy and activity that manifests in the form of spectral children and shadowy figures. Cameras and recording equipment set up by those seeking to document the park's paranormal activity have captured unnerving anomalies. Motion-activated cameras often pick up shapes moving along slides, in the lazy river, or near the pools that are nowhere to be seen when humans physically inspect the area. Night vision footage sometimes shows faint figures drifting across the water or standing near the edges of slides. Audio devices capture faint laughter, whispers, and the sound of splashing in places where there is no water, adding another layer of mystery. Paranormal investigators note that these phenomena are concentrated in areas associated with high energy during the park's operation, the lazy river, main pools, and slides. suggesting a residual connection between past activity and present manifestations. Visitors have also reported environmental changes that seem to accompany ghostly sightings. Sudden drops in temperature, the sensation of being touched by invisible hands, and sudden gusts of wind in enclosed spaces all contribute to the unnerving atmosphere. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences often overwhelms witnesses, creating a sense that the park itself is alive in a spectral way, replaying fragments of its former activity. Locals have passed down stories about Raging Water's haunted presence for years, describing encounters with unseen children, shadowy figures, and the sounds of water that should not exist. Some say that the park's closure left the energy of its patrons trapped, with laughter and excitement lingering long after the last visitor departed. Others believe that the spirits of children, drawn to the joyful experiences they once had, continue to roam the grounds, reliving their summer days endlessly. Explorers who visit the abandoned Raging Waters report a strange mix of nostalgia and dread. The visual of empty pools, silent slides, and a stagnant, lazy river contrasts sharply with the vivid activity reported by those who experience its haunting. Shadowy figures, ghostly children, and phantom splashes all serve as reminders that while the park may no longer host living visitors, the memories of its past refuse to fade. Witnesses leave with more questions than answers, haunted by the sounds and shapes of an abandoned place that continues to echo with life beyond the grave. Raging Waters in Sacramento is more than just an abandoned water park. It is a site where the energy of the past refuses to rest. Ghostly children float in the lazy river. Shadows ascend slides that should be empty, and the sound of splashing water continues long after the park has closed. For those brave enough to witness it, the park offers a chilling glimpse into a space where the joy, laughter, and energy of countless visitors linger as persistent, spectral memories. The haunted waters of Raging Waters serve as a reminder that some places never truly die, they only continue to play host to echoes of the past, visible to those willing to see, hear, and feel them. Splashdown Dunes in Michigan was once a vibrant water park, drawing families and thrill-seekers from across the state to its towering slides, wave pools, and winding lazy rivers. For decades, the laughter of children, the splash of water, and the excitement of summer filled the park, creating memories for countless visitors. But after years of decline, the park closed its gates, leaving behind empty pools, rusting slides, and the quiet stillness of abandoned fun. While the park sits silent during the day, locals and urban explorers tell tales of strange and unexplained phenomena that suggest Splashdown Dunes has not been entirely abandoned. The most commonly reported activity comes from the old slide towers. Once full of flashing lights and water-slicked steps, these structures now loom over the empty grounds. At night, witnesses report seeing lights flickering along the slides, as if someone were racing down them. Yet the park's electrical systems are long disconnected. Some claim the lights pulse rhythmically, resembling the patterns of movement from long-forgotten patrons. These glowing flashes often accompany sudden, chilling screams, seemingly from children, echoing across the empty pools and walkways. Locals describe the sound as eerily real, resonating through the night air and vanishing without explanation, leaving only an oppressive silence in its wake. The abandoned parking lot of Splashdown Dunes is another hotspot for unexplained activity. Residents and explorers have reported apparitions appearing suddenly near the empty asphalt, often only visible for a moment before disappearing entirely. Some describe seeing figures of children running toward the park or adults walking toward the slides, their movements natural yet impossible to trace. Others report a sudden chill in the air, a coldness that surrounds them, accompanied by the sensation of being watched. Vehicles left in the lot occasionally show signs of minor disturbance, doors slightly ajar, footprints in the dust, but no one is ever present to account for the movement. Inside the park, empty buildings and concession stands have their own share of strange occurrences. Windows rattle with no wind, and doors sometimes open and close on their own. Staff and urban explorers have reported hearing faint music, echoes of carnival tunes, drifting through empty corridors where speakers and wiring have long been removed. Some describe hearing laughter from the wave pool area, as though children were playing just out of sight. In certain areas, the air becomes inexplicably cold, and those present report the sensation of unseen hands brushing against their shoulders or a light tap on the back, as if guiding or warning them. The wave pool, now a stagnant basin, is particularly notorious for its eerie energy. Visitors exploring after hours claim to hear splashes coming from the still water, the sound of waves and water movement when no pump or current exists. At times, shadowy figures are seen moving across the pool deck, sometimes reflected faintly in the water, only to vanish when approached. Paranormal investigators who have visited the site suggest that residual energy from the park's busiest days may have left traces of motion and sound, replaying the excitement, laughter, and activity in the empty structures. Reports from those who have entered the park late at night often include glimpses of figures on slides, even in sections where the steps are blocked or too dangerous to climb. These apparitions appear human, sometimes resembling patrons from decades past, but shimmer or fade like mist when approached. Several explorers claim that even their cameras captured fleeting shadows or outlines that could not be explained by natural lighting or motion. Audio recordings occasionally pick up faint laughter, screams, or whispers, seemingly coming from areas long, inaccessible, or completely sealed. Other phenomena reported at splashdown dunes include moving objects and displaced debris. Lounge chairs near the pools have been found rearranged. Discarded life vests appeared draped over fences, and abandoned flotation devices have been spotted in odd locations, as though someone or something had moved them. Witnesses describe an uneasy feeling when these occurrences happen, as if the park is alive with memories, replaying fragments of the past. One frequent visitor reported feeling a hand on their shoulder, only to turn and find no one there, followed by the unmistakable echo of giggling children. Security footage, when available from private explorers or leftover cameras, sometimes reveals strange anomalies. Faint, human-like shadows can be seen moving along slides, across walkways, or near closed concession stands, vanishing when observers try to follow them. Motion-activated cameras occasionally capture flashes of light or glimpses of figures that disappear entirely upon review. Even experienced investigators find the recordings difficult to explain, reinforcing the sense that Splashdown Dunes retains some connection to the lively energy of its past. The abandoned water rides themselves seem to hold residual life. Slides that once carried people in thrilling descents now appear to shimmer faintly in moonlight or reflect movements that cannot be explained by wind or wildlife. Some explorers report hearing water rushing down slides, laughter echoing through the spiral tubes, and even feeling small droplets on their skin despite the lack of water. Others describe the sensation of being pulled slightly, a gentle tug toward a slide or pool edge, only to find themselves alone. Even the park's signage and decorations appear to hold traces of unseen activity. Neon signs flicker in irregular patterns, and banners sometimes sway in areas without wind. Visitors report hearing faint announcements, carnival music, and sounds of children playing, all echoing in the empty air, creating the impression that Splashdown Dunes continues to operate in a spectral fashion. Those who have experienced it speak of a haunting that is subtle yet persistent, a replay of decades of energy that refuses to fade. Splashdown Dunes remains a compelling location for those drawn to the paranormal. Phantom screams, flickering lights, shadowy figures, and the sensation of unseen presences combine to create an atmosphere that is simultaneously nostalgic and unnerving. Even years after closure, the park is said to hold on to the echoes of laughter, excitement, and joy, but also the residual energy of countless visitors who never quite left. For explorers, locals, and thrill seekers who venture into its abandoned grounds, Splashdown Dunes offers a chilling reminder that places once full of life can still harbor the spirits of their past, replaying the moments of fun and chaos in ghostly echoes that linger long after the sun sets. Big Kahuna's in Florida was once a lively destination, attracting families and thrill seekers eager to race down towering water slides, float along lazy rivers, and splash in wave pools. For years, the park resonated with the sounds of excitement, laughter, and water rushing through slides and fountains. But as time passed and the park's popularity waned, certain areas were closed, leaving vast sections abandoned and eerily silent. Yet, even in its partial closure, visitors and urban explorers report unsettling phenomena, suggesting that Big Kahuna retains echoes of its vibrant past, now manifesting in ghostly forms. Those who venture into the deserted sections of the park often describe seeing apparitions climbing slides, their outlines faint but unmistakably human. Witnesses report figures of children and teenagers racing up staircases and disappearing mid-slide, vanishing into thin air before reaching the bottom. The images are fleeting, and while some may assume these are tricks of light or imagination, multiple reports from separate visitors indicate a pattern. The figures appear at different times, always in areas long closed to the public, and are accompanied by the unmistakable sound of rushing water, though the slides themselves remain dry and inactive. The wave pools and lazy rivers are notorious for paranormal activity. Visitors recount hearing splashing and a distant roar of waves, even when the water is still. Some describe the sensation of droplets on their skin, a cool mist forming out of nowhere, followed by faint giggles or chatter from children. These sounds seem to drift from specific areas, the pool edges, slides, or the shallow waiting areas, yet when approached, the noise vanishes, leaving only the empty park. The echo of laughter is often described as both joyful and haunting, a stark reminder of the park's energetic past, contrasted with the present silence. Certain slides, particularly the taller and more elaborate ones, are said to be hotspots for sightings. Visitors climbing nearby staircases report seeing figures moving alongside them, sometimes on slides no longer accessible or structurally unsafe. Shadows descend the slides in a fluid motion, disappearing just as one attempts to make eye contact. Some explorers have recorded faint, misty outlines on video cameras, seeming to accelerate down slides and vanish before the landing pool. Others have captured audio of distant shouts, excitement, or the faint hum of music that once filled the park during operational hours. The abandoned food courts and locker areas carry their own strange energy. Visitors report cold spots, unexplained movement of objects, and sudden sounds of footsteps echoing across tile floors. Lockers swing open and shut without cause, and vending machines sometimes activate with lights flashing and mechanical whirs despite being disconnected. In these areas, some describe hearing phantom conversations, children calling each other's names, or the soft patter of bare feet across concrete floors. The sensation of being observed is common, with a heavy weight or chill following visitors as they navigate deserted corridors. The parking lots and entryways are similarly active. Witnesses claim to see figures walking along pathways that lead nowhere, often vanishing when approached. Shadows appear near ticket booths and information kiosks, figures that seem to mimic the behavior of past guests, as if repeating routines from decades ago. Some explorers have found abandoned personal items left in strange locations, flip-flops, towels, or water bottles, though no one was present to leave them. These objects sometimes move or appear in different spots upon a second visit, fueling the belief that unseen presences interact with the environment. Nighttime visitors often describe a sense of temporal dislocation. The sounds, lights, and figures from Big Kahuna's past seem to layer over the present, creating moments where the park feels alive with the energy of its operational days. One explorer reported standing at the base of a slide and hearing the distinct squeal of a raft rushing down the slide, followed by excited laughter, only to look up and find the slide completely empty. Others report seeing shadows of children playing in areas long blocked by fences or gates, their movements precise and playful, yet impossible to reach. Paranormal investigators who have visited Big Kahuna's note recurring phenomena, sudden drops in temperature near slides and pools, fleeting apparitions, audio anomalies like distant laughter or whispers, and unexplained lights flickering in abandoned areas. Some claim that the park holds residual energy from decades of use, a kind of psychic imprint left by countless hours of human excitement, joy, and activity. Explorers report the strongest activity near the tallest slides, in wave pools, and along narrow pathways where crowds once gathered, suggesting a link between high-energy areas and continued paranormal manifestations. Visitors report that the haunting at Big Kahuna's is not aggressive but persistent. Figures appear and vanish without causing harm. Sounds echo and then fade, and cold spots or moving objects leave an impression of presence rather than threat. Still, the eerie nature of the encounters is enough to unsettle even seasoned explorers. Many leave with the feeling that the park remembers its past visitors, that it somehow replays the energy of fun, excitement, and childhood joy in ghostly echoes that cannot be ignored. Even today, Big Kahuna's continues to fascinate those drawn to the paranormal. Its abandoned slides, empty pools, and quiet corridors are not truly lifeless. Phantom figures, unexplained sounds, and residual energy seem to linger, replaying moments from its vibrant history. Visitors report an experience that is both nostalgic and unnerving, a haunting reminder that places of memory can carry the echoes of the past long after their gates close. Big Kahuna's remains a destination, not for amusement, but for mystery, a place where ghostly figures, climbs, slides, laughter, drifts through the night, and the presence of the past lingers, inviting those brave enough to witness it, to experience a park that never truly sleeps. Water Country, USA, in Williamsburg, Virginia, has long been a destination for families seeking sun, thrills, and a splash of adventure. During its busy summers, the park resonates with laughter, the rush of water, and the excited shouts of children racing down towering slides or floating along lazy rivers. Yet, beyond the operational hours, in the quieter corners and closed sections of the park, there are reports of ghostly activity that suggest the park is far from empty. Visitors and urban explorers alike have recounted chilling experiences, suggesting that the echoes of Water Country, USA's past continue to linger in spectral form. Those who venture into the less traveled areas often report seeing shadowy figures moving along the edges of wave pools. Some describe human-shaped silhouettes walking along closed pathways, disappearing when approached. The figures are frequently described as former employees, their outlines sometimes wearing clothing reminiscent of past park uniforms. Witnesses recall seeing them near lifeguard stations, maintenance buildings, or behind abandoned food stands. These apparitions seem to go about daily routines as if the park were still alive, moving through spaces that should be empty, only to vanish when observed too closely. Certain slides are particularly active, drawing attention from those who seek the paranormal. Visitors recount seeing dark forms ascending staircases, their motion steady, purposeful, and yet impossible to trace fully. Once these figures reach the top, they sometimes vanish before even reaching the slide itself, leaving a lingering chill and a sense of uncanny presence. Some explorers have recorded faint glows or blurry shapes on camera descending slides, accompanied by the sounds of rushing water, even when the rides are completely shut down. The juxtaposition of motion and emptiness is unsettling, making the park's quiet moments feel alive with unseen energy. The wave pools and lazy rivers are hotspots for auditory phenomena. Reports describe the sound of splashing, distant laughter, and murmured conversations where no one is present. Some visitors even describe feeling droplets on their skin, as if the water itself remembers the touch of past patrons. One group recalled the wave pool suddenly moving, water lapping and surging with no explanation, followed by echoes of children's laughter drifting across the deck. These sounds often vanish the moment anyone approaches, leaving only the stillness of empty pools and the eerie knowledge that someone or something was there. Abandoned rest areas and food courts carry their own set of spectral occurrences. Visitors have felt sudden cold drafts in hallways where windows are shut, and some report hearing footsteps echoing from empty rooms. Tables sometimes shift slightly, chairs move on their own, and vending machines occasionally light up or make mechanical noises despite being powered off. Some explorers have noted faint whispers calling their names, or the distinct sound of conversation drifting from corners that have been unused for years. The cumulative effect is a sense that the park retains the energy of its former activity, replaying moments of everyday life in spectral echoes. The parking lots and entryways are also active. Witnesses have reported seeing figures walking along deserted walkways, shadowy silhouettes crossing abandoned sections of asphalt, or lights flickering near empty ticket booths. Some visitors have observed figures mimicking the gestures of former guests or employees, repeating movements as if trapped in a loop of past routines. Cars left in the lot overnight seem to experience minor anomalies, doors unlocked or items slightly moved, fueling speculation that the unseen presences interact with objects just as they did with living patrons decades ago. Nighttime explorers often describe a disorienting mix of nostalgia and unease. The sounds of splashing water, distant laughter, and faint music from decades past can make the park feel momentarily alive. One visitor recalled standing near a slide and hearing a lifeguard whistle, followed by indistinct conversation, only to find the area empty seconds later. Others report seeing silhouettes darting across walkways or climbing slides that are officially closed to the public. In some cases, explorers hear voices calling to each other, as if employees or guests of the past are continuing their daily routines in another dimension. Paranormal investigators who have visited Water Country, USA, note consistent phenomena. Sudden drops in temperature near slides and wave pools are common, and some areas seem to resonate with an unusual energy. Audio anomalies, such as laughter, whispers, and the sound of water moving, have been recorded, even when the park is completely inactive. Visual anomalies, including shadowy figures and faint glowing forms, appear most often in high-traffic areas from the park's operational days: slides, wave pools, food courts, and main pathways. These sightings suggest that the park's energy is residual, a lingering imprint of decades of human activity. Despite these phenomena, the hauntings at Water Country, USA are generally described as benign but persistent. Figures appear and vanish without causing harm. Voices echo and then fade, and cold spots or moving objects leave a tangible sense of presence rather than threat. Visitors often leave with an impression that the park is remembering its past, replaying fragments of joy, laughter, and everyday movement in ghostly form. Some describe it as eerie but nostalgic, a haunting that is as much a reminder of memory as it is of the supernatural. Even today, Water Country, USA continues to fascinate those drawn to paranormal activity. Its empty slides, quiet pools, and abandoned corridors seem to hold the echoes of past summers, preserving the energy of countless visitors in spectral form. Ghostly employees, shadowy figures, and the distant sounds of laughter and water create an atmosphere where the past and present coexist in a subtle, unsettling harmony. Explorers describe experiences that are both unnerving and oddly nostalgic, a reminder that some places retain the energy of their history long after the crowds have gone. Water Country, USA, once a lively hub of summer fun, now stands as a unique paranormal destination. Ghostly figures climb slides, laughter drifts across empty pools, and shadows linger in abandoned areas. The park serves as a living memory, a place where echoes of past visitors continue to roam, and where the energy of joy and excitement persists in ghostly form, waiting for those who dare to witness it. Six Flags Hurricane Harbor in Arlington, Texas, is widely known for its thrilling slides, sprawling wave pools, and family-friendly attractions that draw crowds during the sweltering summer months. By day, it buzzes with laughter, the rush of water, and the shouts of children racing down towering slides or floating along lazy rivers. However, when the park closes and darkness settles over the sprawling grounds, a different presence is said to emerge. Visitors and urban explorers alike have reported ghostly activity in the park, suggesting that the energy of past patrons and staff may linger long after the water stops flowing and the gates are locked. Many of the hauntings are reported around the slides, especially in the park's larger, more isolated areas. Witnesses describe seeing figures climbing staircases or poised at the top of slides, only to vanish before reaching the descent. Some report shadowy forms sliding down at night, their movements eerily smooth, accompanied by the distant echo of splashing water despite the pools being empty. One visitor recounted seeing a translucent figure at the top of a high-speed slide, holding a lifeguard whistle, and then suddenly disappearing as if the energy of the park's operational hours had been captured and frozen in time. These sightings suggest that the park's past activity, both joyful and routine, remains imprinted upon the grounds in spectral form. Abandoned paths and walkways are equally active. Reports often describe phantom footsteps echoing in areas that are cordoned off or closed for maintenance. Explorers walking these paths at night have felt as if someone were following them, hearing footsteps keep pace before vanishing entirely. Sometimes, strange mists rise from empty pools, drifting across decks and pathways without explanation. Visitors report chills accompanying these mists, and some have noted fleeting shapes within the fog, appearing as if they are wading through the air itself. The combination of silence, sudden movement, and inexplicable cold often leaves witnesses feeling watched and unsettled. The wave pools and lazy rivers, normally filled with the sound of water and laughter, have been sites of frequent reports as well. Some visitors have described the sudden sound of rushing water when no pumps or waves are active, or the sensation of droplets hitting their skin while standing on the empty deck. Others hear faint echoes of children's laughter drifting across the pool, or the soft murmur of conversation, as if the park's patrons are invisible, yet still present. On occasion, the pools themselves seem to react to these presences, with minor ripples or small waves appearing without wind or mechanical cause, adding to the park's eerie reputation. Certain food courts and rest areas also host spectral activity. Witnesses recount seeing shadowy figures move behind closed counters, chairs shifting slightly, and tables appearing to have been rearranged when no one is around. Unexplained sounds, such as the clatter of dishes or faint conversations, are common, as are brief glimpses of figures in the hallways between stores. Some explorers describe faint smells of sunscreen, popcorn, or chlorine where no one is present, further reinforcing the sense that the park is replaying remnants of its past. The parking lots and entrance areas are often described as unnerving, particularly when visited late at night. Shadowy figures have been observed crossing deserted asphalt, sometimes appearing to interact with vehicles, headlights flickering as though sensing an unseen presence. Guests have reported seeing figures mimicking the movements of park employees, walking with purpose along walkways, or moving through the gates as though the park was still in operation. These encounters, though brief, contribute to the idea that Hurricane Harbor retains a consciousness of its own, echoing the routines and habits of past visitors and staff. Nighttime visitors often describe an unsettling combination of nostalgia and fear. The laughter, splashing water, and distant echoes of activity create a sense that the park is alive, yet empty. One urban explorer recalled standing near a wave pool and hearing the faint sound of a lifeguard whistle, followed by murmured instructions, only to turn and find no one in sight. Another described climbing a slide staircase and seeing a shadowy figure descend just ahead of them, disappearing mid-slide, leaving only the sound of rushing water that seemed to have no source. These experiences blur the line between memory and reality, making the park feel simultaneously familiar and hauntingly alien. Paranormal investigators have documented a range of phenomena at Hurricane Harbor. Sudden drops in temperature near slides, pools, and walkways are common, as are audio anomalies such as laughter, whispers, and splashing water. Visual anomalies, including shadowy figures and faint glowing forms, appear most often in locations where activity was historically concentrated: wave pools, high-speed slides, food courts, and main walkways. Investigators suggest that the park's energy is residual, a lingering imprint of decades of human activity that continues to manifest in ghostly form long after the gates close. Despite these unsettling events, the hauntings at Hurricane Harbor are generally described as non-threatening. Figures appear and vanish, sounds echo and fade, and cold spots leave a tangible sense of presence rather than danger. Witnesses often feel a strange combination of unease and curiosity, as if the park itself is replaying moments of joy, excitement, and daily routine in a spectral loop. For many, the experience is eerie, yet strangely nostalgic. A reminder that places imbued with intense emotion, laughter, play, and activity can retain echoes long after human presence has ended. Even today, Hurricane Harbor continues to attract thrill-seekers and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Ghostly figures climb slides, phantom footsteps echo along empty paths, and mists rise from abandoned pools, creating an atmosphere where the past and present coexist in unsettling harmony. The park serves as a living memory, preserving fragments of its history in spectral form. Explorers leave with an impression that the laughter and excitement of countless summers continue to resonate, a reminder that some places retain the energy of their history, replaying it for those willing to witness it. Six Flags Hurricane Harbor, with its towering slides, sprawling pools, and deserted walkways at night, has become more than a water park. It stands as a site of lingering presence, where shadows of past patrons, ghostly employees, and inexplicable phenomena continue to make their mark. Visitors recount apparitions, phantom footsteps, rising mists, and laughter that drifts through the empty grounds. Even after the last wave has subsided and the gates are locked, the park's spectral residents remain, silently replaying the echoes of summers long gone. Wild Rivers in Irvine, California, once a bustling water park filled with the sounds of laughter, splashing water, and excited screams, now sits abandoned and largely forgotten. The sprawling grounds, which once hosted families seeking summer thrills, are now quiet. Except for those who claim the echoes of the past refuse to fade. Ghostly activity has been reported by local urban explorers, trespassers, and paranormal enthusiasts, turning the deserted park into a site of eerie fascination. The most commonly reported phenomena occurred near the lazy river, which, in its operational days, offered a gentle float for visitors of all ages. At night, those venturing into the abandoned park describe seeing shadowy figures drifting along the water's edge, often pausing near the curve of the river before disappearing. Some witnesses have reported hearing faint splashes and cries as if children were playing, though the water remained still and lifeless. One visitor recounted standing near the river and feeling sudden, inexplicable chills, hearing a distant scream that seemed to come from nowhere, and then seeing a translucent figure vanish into the darkened trees surrounding the river. The water slides, once a centerpiece of the park's attractions, have also become focal points for paranormal activity. Visitors have described the sensation of slides moving without human presence, with faint echoes of rushing water cascading down their surfaces. In some cases, explorers report seeing forms climbing the stairs to the top of slides, only for the figures to vanish before descending. On one occasion, a shadowy figure was captured on camera at the top of a large twisting slide, pausing for a moment before disappearing entirely, leaving no trace of entry or exit. These occurrences suggest that residual energy from years of operation continues to manifest in the park's deserted structures. Abandoned walkways and deck areas surrounding pools are equally unsettling. Phantom footsteps are frequently reported, often accompanied by the sense of being watched. Some visitors recount hearing laughter echoing along empty paths or seeing fleeting shadows move behind railings. Lights left behind from the park's final days sometimes flicker inexplicably, and unexplained sounds such as splashes, shouts, or the faint hum of a pump are common. One explorer describes standing on the observation deck overlooking the wave pool when a sudden, icy gust of wind swept through, carrying the sound of distant screams. Looking around, there was no one present, but the sensation of unseen presence lingered for minutes. The park's abandoned facilities, including locker rooms, concession areas, and maintenance rooms, also harbor unusual occurrences. Doors are reported to open and close on their own. Faint whispers echo through empty halls, and equipment appears disturbed, as if handled by invisible hands. Some explorers have noticed cold spots that appear suddenly, a stark contrast to the California heat, which adds to the feeling that the park is alive with memories it refuses to release. Photographs taken in these areas often reveal strange light anomalies, shadowy figures, or ghostly shapes that vanish upon a second glance. Even the parking lots and entry gates of Wild Rivers contribute to the park's haunting reputation. Shadowy figures have been seen wandering through empty lots, sometimes appearing to interact with vehicles or walk through gates as if the park was still operational. Some visitors report hearing distant calls or laughter carried on the wind, giving the impression of a park filled with activity despite its abandonment. The combination of silence, shadows, and residual noise creates a sense of dislocation, making it difficult to distinguish between the past and the present. Local urban explorers and paranormal investigators have documented various forms of activity throughout the park. Sudden temperature drops, inexplicable sounds, and visual anomalies are common, particularly near attractions that were once heavily trafficked, such as slides, pools, and the lazy river. Investigators suggest that the park's intense emotional history, years of joyful screams, playful energy, and human interaction may have left an imprint that continues to manifest in spectral form. These residual energies, they argue, are capable of creating tangible sensations for those who enter the park after hours. Despite the eerie atmosphere, most of the hauntings at Wild Rivers are described as non-threatening. Shadowy figures appear and vanish without aggression. Sounds echo and fade, and unexplained movements occur without harm. Many visitors report a mix of fear and fascination, a feeling of stepping into a place where the echoes of joy, excitement, and human activity persist beyond the boundaries of time. The park, once a place of recreation, seems now to exist in a liminal state between memory and the present, replaying moments of its past in ways both subtle and unsettling. Explorers who venture into Wild Rivers at night often leave with a profound sense of awe and unease. Ghostly screams, shadowy figures near slides, and the occasional ripple of water in empty pools contribute to an atmosphere that is both nostalgic and haunting. The park's physical structures remain intact, yet they are imbued with the energy of countless visitors who once filled its spaces. For those willing to witness it, Wild Rivers offers a chilling glimpse into the persistence of memory, emotion, and spectral presence in abandoned places. Even today, long after the park's closure, the haunted sections of Wild Rivers continue to draw attention. Phantom riders climb slides, shadowy figures glide along the lazy river, and unexplained sounds echo across pools and pathways. The park stands as a reminder that locations filled with intense human activity can retain traces of that energy, replaying moments long after they have ended. Wild Rivers, with its slides, pools, and abandoned walkways, serves as a spectral monument to summers past, a place where the echoes of laughter, screams, and playful joy refuse to fade into silence. Those who explore Wild Rivers at night often recount experiences that blur the line between memory and reality, leaving them with a lasting impression of a park still alive in spirit. The ghostly activity is persistent yet elusive, haunting yet strangely nostalgic. From shadowy figures on slides to screams echoing across empty pools, Wild Rivers in Irvine remains a place where the past lingers, quietly replaying itself for anyone willing to observe. Long Island's Splish Splash Water Park was once the epitome of summer fun. Bright towels, the smell of sunscreen, the echoing sounds of laughter and splashing water. But as the years have passed, whispers have begun to circulate among locals and employees alike, telling of strange occurrences after hours, of ghostly visitors who seem forever trapped in the park's golden era of the 1980s. When the gates close and the last guests leave, Splish Splash reportedly transforms from a playground of joy to a place of eerie, inexplicably phenomena. Locals often talk about the faint music that sometimes drifts through the park long after it should have fallen silent. Witnesses claim to hear the tinny notes of 80s pop songs, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Cyndi Lauper, faintly echoing from the direction of the old wave pool. Though the sound system has long been powered down, it's always the same songs, always from that decade, as though the park itself is replaying memories on a loop. unable to let go of a time when it was alive with families' laughter and the unrelenting hum of summer. The most persistent reports come from security guards and maintenance staff who patrolled the grounds at night. One guard, who worked at Splish Splash for nearly a decade, described seeing what looked like a group of children darting between the slides near the lazy river. He called out to them, thinking perhaps some local teens had snuck in for a late-night swim. But when he approached, the children vanished before his eyes. The only evidence of their presence was the faint sound of giggling, echoing over the empty pools. He later described their clothing: striped swimsuits, neon colors, high-cut legs, and retro patterns, unmistakably 1980s fashion. Another worker reported seeing a single figure at the top of a closed slide one foggy morning, just as the sun began to rise. The figure appeared to be a young boy, around 10 years old, standing perfectly still. When she looked away to radio security and then looked back, the boy was gone, but a few seconds later, she heard a splash in the pool below, though the water was perfectly still. Stories like these have accumulated over the years, passed around like campfire tales among employees who clean or maintain the park during off hours. Some attribute the hauntings to a series of accidents that occurred during Splish Splash's early years, though not widely publicized. Local rumors speak of at least 2 fatal incidents in the 1980s, one involving a young boy who drowned in the wave pool, and another concerning a maintenance worker electrocuted during a power failure near one of the slides. While official records are hazy, longtime residents of Riverhead claim these events cast a long shadow over the park's sunny reputation. As time went on, reports became more varied and unsettling. Guests during the off-season photo shoots claimed to feel cold drafts, even on the hottest days, especially near the Giant Twister and the Dragon's Den slides. Some described catching movement in the corners of their eyes, figures darting behind stairwells or between concession stands, only to vanish when approached. One photographer swore she captured a faint outline of a child's face and a reflection on the surface of the still water, though when she looked again, the face was gone. At night, when the park is dark, strange lights have been reported shimmering along the slide's pale, shifting orbs that seem to trace the curves of the flumes, glowing faintly like bioluminescent trails. From a distance, they look like someone riding the slides in darkness, their path illuminated by an otherworldly glow. Some believe these lights are the spirits of those who once loved the park, replaying their final moments of joy. Others see them as echoes, imprints of energy left behind by thousands of visitors, residual memories that refuse to fade. Locals who live near the park claim that the hauntings aren't confined to the grounds alone. Late at night, when the wind blows east, they say you can hear faint sounds of splashing water and laughter carried through the air. A few even report seeing figures walking through the empty parking lot, people in bright swimwear, dripping wet, yet leaving no footprints behind. These sightings are so common that some locals refer to the area around Splish Splash as Ghost Lane. One of the eeriest accounts came from a man who worked in park management during the early 2000s. He was one of the last to leave each night, locking up the administrative offices. One evening, as he turned off the final set of lights, he heard a soft, rhythmic tapping, like someone walking barefoot down a wet hallway. When he turned to look, there was no one there, but on the floor, he noticed a set of small, wet footprints leading toward the exit prints that stopped abruptly halfway across the tile. Even during the day, the park's atmosphere can feel uncanny. Some employees say there are areas where the temperature drops dramatically, especially near the wave pool and the original slide structures that date back to the park's opening. Guests have occasionally reported a sudden sense of dread or sadness, describing it as though they were being watched or reliving someone else's memory. Psychics who have visited the park claim it's layered with energy from decades of visitors, laughter, fear, and excitement. They believe some spirits might be drawn to that emotional intensity, unwilling to leave a place so filled with life. Others think the hauntings might be tied to the water itself, a natural conductor of energy that retains echoes of emotion, memory, and trauma. Whether these stories are merely folklore or fragments of something real, the legend of Splish Splash's ghosts continues to grow. Those who have experienced the strange phenomena firsthand say there's a strange beauty in it, a reminder that joy, like sorrow, leaves an imprint on the world. When the park is empty, the laughter of its past lingers, carried by the wind through the silent slides and forgotten pools. And on some moonlit nights, if you listen closely, you might just hear the faint echo of summer laughter that docent belonged to the living, yet refuses to fade away. Waterworld in Colorado was once one of the most vibrant and beloved water parks in the United States, a sprawling 64-acre oasis where families escaped the summer heat. Teenagers dared each other on looping slides, and the air rang with the sounds of splashing, laughter, and music. But as the years passed and sections of the park were closed off, something else began to settle over the property, something unseen, yet unmistakably present. Today, the park's abandoned areas tell a different story. Visitors, employees, and curious explorers have spoken of phantom lifeguards, shadowy figures walking empty boardwalks, and the eerie sound of running water when no attractions are operating. The first reports began quietly, whispered among maintenance staff and seasonal workers who stayed late after the park had closed for the night. One worker recalled walking along the old wave pool deck after a routine maintenance check, only to hear a whistle blow sharply behind him. When he turned, there was no one there. The lifeguard stands were empty, and the pool lay still beneath the moonlight. Yet the sound of water sloshing echoed faintly, as if an unseen current moved through it. Moments later, he heard footsteps pacing along the boardwalk, slow, deliberate, heavy with purpose, like a lifeguard on duty, watching over invisible swimmers. Waterworld's haunted reputation grew slowly, fueled by these small, inexplicable moments. The park's size and maze-like structure make it easy to get lost after dark, and even easier to imagine unseen presences moving through the mist rising from the pools. But what unnerves most witnesses is the precision of the encounters, the sounds of radios crackling, the low hum of filtration systems, long shut down, and, most hauntingly, the occasional echo of voices calling out safety instructions, as if the ghosts of staff are still keeping watch. A former employee, named Alina, recalled an evening in late summer when she stayed late to help clean the lazy river. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she heard a man's voice behind her say, "No running." She turned, expecting to see her supervisor, but the deck was empty. She laughed it off until she noticed faint wet footprints leading away from the area, though no one else was there. The prints vanished halfway down the walkway. Later that week, another worker mentioned hearing the same phrase in the same area, spoken in the same calm, authoritative tone. There's one part of the park that locals now call the Quiet Zone, a stretch of boardwalk near the original Thunder Bay wave pool that was closed for maintenance years ago and never reopened. Security personnel who patrol the grounds at night say they avoid that area when possible. One guard described the atmosphere there as charged, like static before a lightning strike. He claimed to have seen the silhouette of a lifeguard perched on a high chair, motionless against the dim light of the moon. When he blinked, the figure was gone, but the metal seat of the chair was wet, as though someone had just been sitting there. Some of the most unnerving experiences involve the phantom sounds that rippled through the park after midnight. Staff have reported hearing the distant rush of running water, not from the maintenance pumps, but from empty slides that haven't been operational in years. The echoes seem to travel with intention, rising and falling as though unseen riders are still sliding down into invisible pools. At times, faint laughter accompanies the noise, fading into whispers that no one can fully make out. Local paranormal groups have taken interest in these reports, conducting investigations during off hours. One team recorded what they described as residual hauntings, electromagnetic fluctuations, and cold spots centered around old mechanical areas where staff once congregated. In the recordings, faint voices can be heard, "Watch the kids," and "All clear." Another investigator reported hearing what sounded like two-way radios, though none were in use at the time. While skeptics attribute these phenomena to the park's acoustics, wind currents, and leftover electrical interference, many who have experienced them firsthand remain unconvinced. A night janitor who worked at the park for over a decade once said, "You can tell when a place is empty, and you can tell when it isn't. There are nights here when it's definitely not." Perhaps the most chilling stories come from the upper sections of the park, where old slides twist through patches of overgrown grass, and faded signs still read caution, wet surface. People who have wandered there after hours describe seeing movement in their peripheral vision, like shadows pacing slowly along the railings. Some even claim to have seen figures dressed in red lifeguard uniforms, walking purposefully toward the top of the slides, then vanishing before reaching the platform. One night, a drone operator filming aerial footage captured a shape standing near one of the abandoned towers. When reviewed later, the figure appeared solid, until, in the next frame, it was gone. Rumors of tragedy fuel much of the park's ghost lore, although Waterworld's official records show only a few serious accidents over the decades. Whispers persist of drownings, slip-and-fall deaths, and a fatal incident involving a young lifeguard in the late 1980s. Locals believe that these lost souls still linger, drawn to the place where they took their final breaths, unable to move on from the energy of the water that surrounded them. Visitors who come during off-season tours have also reported unsettling sensations, sudden drops in temperature, the feeling of being watched, and unexplained moisture in the air even on dry days. A few have said they heard faint breathing near their ears while standing in the middle of an empty walkway. Some claim they felt a light tap on their shoulder, only to turn around and find no one there. As day turns to night, the park transforms into something otherworldly. The wind passes through the skeletal remains of slides, creating hollow, whistling tones. The pools reflect the moon like sheets of dark glass, perfectly still until a faint ripple disturbs the surface, as though something unseen has just dived beneath. Those who have felt the park's strange pulse describe it not as menacing, but mournful, like the echo of a place that can't let go of its own past. The laughter of children, the sound of rushing water, the bark of lifeguard whistles, all of it lingers, replaying endlessly in the silence. Today, even as parts of Waterworld continue to operate, the older, forgotten corners remain eerily quiet. Yet, on still nights, locals say they can hear the faint hum of activity, the whoosh of water, the call of invisible lifeguards, and the rhythmic splash of waves that shouldn't exist. The ghosts of Waterworld, it seems, are still on duty, guarding the echoes of a summer that never truly ended. Raging Rapids in Ohio was once a beloved summer retreat, a place where families gathered to escape the heat, where the scent of chlorine and sunscreen filled the air, and where laughter echoed through the valley. It opened in the late 1970s, a sprawling water park with twisting slides, a roaring wave pool, and the main attraction, the Raging Rapids. Ride itself, a fast-moving artificial river that pulled inflatable rafts through tight turns and sudden drops. For years, the park thrived, but as time went on, storms, structural damage, and a series of mysterious accidents left it empty and decaying. Now, decades after its closure, the once bustling park stands silent, or so it should be. Locals who wander near the ruins swear that Raging Rapids is far from lifeless. On quiet nights, they say, you can still hear the sound of rushing water coming from the dry channels, as if the ride still flows under the surface of time. The echo of laughter drifts across the breeze, faint but unmistakable. Many believe that something or someone remains tethered to the park, replaying the joy and tragedy of those lost summers. One of the first strange reports came from a group of teenagers exploring the park after it closed in the early 2000s. They climbed the fence and made their way through the overgrown entrance. Flashlights cutting through the dark. As they passed the old wave pool, they heard splashing rhythmic and loud, as if dozens of people were still swimming. When they shone their lights toward the sound, the water was gone, the pool bone dry and cracked with age, but they claimed they could see wet footprints leading away from the pool, disappearing into the grass. The air smelled faintly of chlorine, even though no chemical had touched that water in years. Former employees have also spoken about the eerie energy that hangs over the place. Mark, a lifeguard who worked at Raging Rapids in its final season, once described his last night on duty as the longest shift of his life. He stayed late to help close the park after a storm forced early evacuation. As the sky darkened, he walked along the lazy river to ensure no one remained. He said he heard laughter echoing behind him, a woman's voice, followed by a splash. When he turned, the river was calm. But then, he noticed something impossible. The water in the channel began to move, forming a slow current that gained speed until it was churning as if the pumps had come back on. He ran to the control shack, but the power was out. The current, he said, continued for several minutes before stopping abruptly, leaving the air unnaturally still. In the years that followed, the park's reputation grew darker. Locals claimed to see shadowy figures standing at the top of the slides, silhouettes that appeared just before storms. A few dared to take photographs, but the images always came out distorted, streaked with mist and strange blue light. Some said they could see faint outlines of people in old lifeguard uniforms, waving from across the park, only to vanish when approached. Others heard the faint hum of the intercom system crackling to life, followed by distant voices calling, "All clear for the next raft." The surrounding community began to treat the park as cursed. Rumors spread about accidents that had occurred there. A maintenance worker allegedly pulled into one of the pumps, a lifeguard who drowned while saving a child, and a young boy who vanished after entering the employee tunnels beneath the slides. Official records are vague, but residents believe these lost souls still linger, unable to leave the place that claimed them. Paranormal investigators who visited Raging Rapids recorded unexplainable phenomena. One team set up motion sensors along the empty slides and near the old control room. The sensors triggered multiple times, though no movement was visible. Audio equipment captured what sounded like splashing, laughter, and the faint sound of lifeguard whistles echoing from nowhere. In one recording, a low voice whispered, "Stay back," moments before all their lights flickered out. When the team left, they found wet footprints around their van, though the nearest standing water was half a mile away. Local law enforcement occasionally patrols the area to keep trespassers out, but even some officers admit that strange things happen there. One deputy described responding to a report of lights on in the park one night. When he arrived, he saw the main tower illuminated in soft blue, as though powered again. The lights flickered and went out as he approached. Inside, the air was cold, unnaturally cold for midsummer. On the wall, streaks of condensation formed, spelling what looked like a single word, "Run." He left and never returned. Visitors who approach from the nearby hiking trails report the same thing, sounds of rushing water and the distinct smell of wet concrete. One hiker described hearing children's laughter coming from inside the park just after sunset. When he peered through a gap in the fence, he saw figures sliding down the dry water tubes, their movements unnaturally smooth and silent. As the sun set completely, the figures dissolved into the darkness. There are whispers among residents that the water itself might be the source of the hauntings. The artificial river had drawn its water from a deep underground spring, one that locals believed was cursed long before the park was built. Early settlers reported the spring as a place where the earth breathes, claiming strange sounds came from beneath it. When construction for Raging Rapids began, workers complained about tools vanishing and machinery breaking down without reason. One foreman quit after he saw what he described as a man standing waist-deep in water that wasn't there. Even now, the land around the park feels uneasy. Birds rarely fly overhead, and the grass near the slides grows in irregular patches, as though something beneath the soil disturbs it. People who linger too long often feel dizzy, disoriented, or chilled, even under the blazing Ohio sun. In recent years, developers proposed turning the property into housing, but each plan fell through after unexplained setbacks. Construction crews reported finding their equipment mysteriously soaked each morning, with faint handprints on the walls of newly built structures. One worker quit after hearing a voice whisper his name from inside a sealed water pipe. Today, Raging Rapids sits quietly, fenced off and surrounded by trees reclaiming what remains. The faded signs still bear slogans like "Feel the Rush" and "Ride the Rapids," now haunting reminders of what once was. The concrete riverbed lies dry and cracked, yet some nights, when the moonlight hits just right, Locals swear they can see water flowing through it, clear, fast, and endless. Those brave enough to listen closely hear the echo of lifeguard whistles and the faint murmur of a crowd cheering from long ago. And if you stand near the entrance at midnight, they say, you might hear the old park intercom sputter to life, hissing through static before a cheerful voice announces, "Welcome to Raging Rapids. Keep your hands inside the raft at all times." Then comes a splash, a scream, and the rush of invisible water, fading into silence as the night air grows still once more. Raging Rapids in Ohio was once a beloved summer retreat, a place where families gathered to escape the heat, where the scent of chlorine and sunscreen filled the air, and where laughter echoed through the valley. It opened in the late 1970s, a sprawling water park with twisting slides, a roaring wave pool, and the main attraction, the Raging Rapids. Ride itself, a fast-moving artificial river that pulled inflatable rafts through tight turns and sudden drops. For years, the park thrived, but as time went on, storms, structural damage, and a series of mysterious accidents left it empty and decaying. Now, decades after its closure, the once bustling park stands silent, or so it should be. Locals who wander near the ruins swear that Raging Rapids is far from lifeless. On quiet nights, they say, you can still hear the sound of rushing water coming from the dry channels, as if the ride still flows under the surface of time. The echo of laughter drifts across the breeze, faint but unmistakable. Many believe that something or someone remains tethered to the park, replaying the joy and tragedy of those lost summers. One of the first strange reports came from a group of teenagers exploring the park after it closed in the early 2000s. They climbed the fence and made their way through the overgrown entrance. Flashlights cutting through the dark. As they passed the old wave pool, they heard splashing rhythmic and loud, as if dozens of people were still swimming. When they shone their lights toward the sound, the water was gone, the pool bone dry and cracked with age, but they claimed they could see wet footprints leading away from the pool, disappearing into the grass. The air smelled faintly of chlorine, even though no chemical had touched that water in years. Former employees have also spoken about the eerie energy that hangs over the place. Mark, a lifeguard who worked at Raging Rapids in its final season, once described his last night on duty as the longest shift of his life. He stayed late to help close the park after a storm forced early evacuation. As the sky darkened, he walked along the lazy river to ensure no one remained. He said he heard laughter echoing behind him, a woman's voice, followed by a splash. When he turned, the river was calm. But then, he noticed something impossible. The water in the channel began to move, forming a slow current that gained speed until it was churning as if the pumps had come back on. He ran to the control shack, but the power was out. The current, he said, continued for several minutes before stopping abruptly, leaving the air unnaturally still. In the years that followed, the park's reputation grew darker. Locals claimed to see shadowy figures standing at the top of the slides, silhouettes that appeared just before storms. A few dared to take photographs, but the images always came out distorted, streaked with mist and strange blue light. Some said they could see faint outlines of people in old lifeguard uniforms, waving from across the park, only to vanish when approached. Others heard the faint hum of the intercom system crackling to life, followed by distant voices calling, "All clear for the next raft." The surrounding community began to treat the park as cursed. Rumors spread about accidents that had occurred there. A maintenance worker allegedly pulled into one of the pumps, a lifeguard who drowned while saving a child, and a young boy who vanished after entering the employee tunnels beneath the slides. Official records are vague, but residents believe these lost souls still linger, unable to leave the place that claimed them. Paranormal investigators who visited Raging Rapids recorded unexplainable phenomena. One team set up motion sensors along the empty slides and near the old control room. The sensors triggered multiple times, though no movement was visible. Audio equipment captured what sounded like splashing, laughter, and the faint sound of lifeguard whistles echoing from nowhere. In one recording, a low voice whispered, "Stay back." Moments before, all their lights flickered out. When the team left, they found wet footprints around their van, though the nearest standing water was half a mile away. Local law enforcement occasionally patrols the area to keep trespassers out, but even some officers admit that strange things happen there. One deputy described responding to a report of lights on in the park one night. When he arrived, he saw the main tower illuminated in soft blue, as though powered again. The lights flickered and went out as he approached. Inside, the air was cold, unnaturally cold for midsummer. On the wall, streaks of condensation formed, spelling what looked like a single word, run. He left and never returned. Visitors who approach from the nearby hiking trails report the same thing. Sounds of rushing water and the distinct smell of wet concrete. One hiker described hearing children's laughter coming from inside the park just after sunset. When he peered through a gap in the fence, he saw a figure sliding down the dry water tubes, their movements unnaturally smooth and silent. As the sun set completely, the figures dissolved into the darkness. There are whispers among residents that the water itself might be the source of the hauntings. The artificial river had drawn its water from a deep underground spring, one that locals believed was cursed long before the park was built. Early settlers reported the spring as a place where the earth breathes, claiming strange sounds came from beneath it. When construction for Raging Rapids began, workers complained about tools vanishing and machinery breaking down without reason. One foreman quit after he saw what he described as a man standing waist-deep in water that wasn't there. Even now, the land around the park feels uneasy. Birds rarely fly overhead, and the grass near the slides grows in irregular patches, as though something beneath the soil disturbs it. People who linger too long often feel dizzy, disoriented, or chilled, even under the blazing Ohio sun. In recent years, developers proposed turning the property into housing, but each plan fell through after unexplained setbacks. Construction crews reported finding their equipment mysteriously soaked each morning, with faint handprints on the walls of newly built structures. One worker quit after hearing a voice whisper his name from inside a sealed water pipe. Today, Raging Rapids sits quietly, fenced off and surrounded by trees, reclaiming what remains. The faded signs still bear slogans like "Feel the Rush" and "Ride the Rapids," now haunting reminders of what once was. The concrete riverbed lies dry and cracked, yet some nights, when the moonlight hits just right, locals swear they can see water flowing through it, clear, fast, and endless. Those brave enough to listen closely hear the echo of lifeguard whistles and the faint murmur of a crowd cheering from long ago. And if you stand near the entrance at midnight, they say, you might hear the old park intercom sputter to life, hissing through static before a cheerful voice announces, "Welcome to Raging Rapids. Keep your hands inside the raft at all times." Then comes a splash, a scream, and the rush of invisible water, fading into silence as the night air grows still once more. Under the scorching Nevada sun once stood wet and wild Las Vegas, a water park that promised laughter, thrills, and cool relief from the desert heat. For decades, it was a local icon where families gathered, friends raced down slides, and summer memories were made. Yet today, where those echoes of joy once filled the air, there lingers something else, something inexplicable. Visitors who dare to return to the site after dark claim that laughter still rings out, faint and distant, even though the park has long been closed and silent. When it opened in 1985, Wet n Wild became an oasis on the edge of the strip, boasting twisting slides, wave pools, and the legendary Der Stuka, a near-vertical freefall that terrified and delighted visitors. But as years passed, the park began to fade. By 2004, it was shuttered, its pools drained, and its slides left to bleach under the relentless desert sun. The land that once promised joy now feels unnaturally still until night falls. That's when the strange sounds begin. Local residents who live near the old site have reported hearing splashing water echoing across the empty lot. Some have claimed to see faint blue lights darting along the dry tracks of slides, as though reflecting off water that isn't there. Yet when anyone approaches, the laughter fades, and the figures vanish into the desert air. Security guards once assigned to patrol the property after its closure began reporting unnerving experiences. One man described walking the perimeter near midnight and hearing the unmistakable creak of the wave pool's machinery turning on. When he checked, the control panel was cold and powerless. The figure stopped halfway up, turned its head toward him, and simply disappeared. After that, he refused to patrol alone. Others have mentioned phantom sounds, the rhythmic rush of slides, the splash of bodies hitting water, even the faint hum of the park's loudspeakers. On several occasions, locals passing by have reported hearing snippets of music from the 90s songs that once played over the park's speakers on hot summer days. The sounds drift faintly through the wind, as if the park is still alive in another time. Some paranormal investigators believe Wet n Wild's hauntings may stem from the energy of the thousands who visited it. Joy, fear, excitement, all powerful emotions that might have imprinted themselves onto the land. But others point to darker stories. During its operational years, there were whispers of accidents, lifeguards who drowned during training drills, guests injured or worse on the slides. Though few records remain public, longtime residents recall newspaper headlines of tragedy amid the summer fun. One former employee, now in his 50s, recalls something that's haunted him ever since. He was closing up the park one evening when he heard someone crying near the wave pool. Thinking it was a lost child, he walked toward the sound. There, standing ankle-deep in the drained basin, was a little girl in an old-fashioned bathing suit, something straight out of the 80s. Her hair dripped as if she'd just climbed out of the water. He called out to her, but she didn't respond. When he took a step closer, she looked up and vanished in front of him, leaving only the echo of splashing water that faded into silence. Reports like his are common among those who revisit the site. Others describe lights flickering in patterns, almost like the park's old lighting system turning itself on. Even more chilling are stories of phantom employees, figures in red lifeguard uniforms, standing at the tops of slides or pacing near what was once the main pool. Witnesses claim these apparitions look solid until approached, then dissolve like mist. Some who have investigated the property say the temperature drops dramatically near the old lifeguard tower. One team using thermal cameras captured cold spots in human shapes moving across the grounds. The most compelling evidence, however, came from an audio recording taken near the drained pool. When played back, a faint but distinct sound could be heard, children laughing and splashing, followed by a single lifeguard's whistle cutting through the air. To this day, even though the original park has been demolished, those who drive by the former site sometimes feel a sudden chill. Locals say that during certain summer nights, when the air is heavy and still the echoes of the park return, the ghostly rush of water. Skeptics dismiss the stories as imagination, as tricks of heat and memory. They argue that people remember Wet n Wild so fondly that the mind plays its own games, filling the silence with echoes of the past. Yet others insist that something remains, something more than memory. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Perhaps the joy and tragedy that filled that park still ripple through time, replaying like an endless summer loop. In the end, Wet n Wild Las Vegas stands as a haunting paradox, once alive with the energy of thousands, now remembered as one of the eeriest remnants of the city's past. But when night comes and the desert winds sweep through the forgotten lot, you might just hear them again, the phantom children playing, the splash of invisible waves, and the faint echo of a lifeguard's whistle calling across the dark, empty pools of a park that refuses to be forgotten. Once a vibrant summer escape, filled with families, laughter, and splashing waves, Hurricane Bay in New Jersey now sits eerily quiet. Its once bright paint has faded under years of sun and rain, and the slides that once roared with excitement now stand still against the wind. Yet, according to locals, the park has not truly emptied. Long after its closure, visitors who wander near the property claim that something or someone still moves through the shadows. Faint laughter, echoing footsteps, and mysterious figures appear along the walkways, as if the park itself refuses to rest. When Hurricane Bay first opened in the late 1980s, it was a sensation. Families from across the state flocked there to ride its massive slides, drift lazily along its artificial rivers, and brave the towering waves of its signature pool. It was everything a summer paradise was meant to be: bright, busy, and alive. But as the years passed, maintenance issues, accidents, and financial troubles began to erode its reputation. By the late 2000s, the laughter had faded, the pools were drained, and the gates were locked for good. What remained, however, was an unsettling presence that countless witnesses have since encountered. Residents living near the old grounds tell of nights when strange lights flicker across the property. Others claim to hear the rhythmic sound of waves slapping against the walls of an empty pool. One neighbor, a former employee, says she hears the faint echo of the park. Its loudspeaker system, its long disconnected intercom crackling with fragments of music or announcements that haven't been broadcast in decades. Among the many unsettling stories, the most consistent involved the wave pool, once the heart of the park. Security guards who patrolled the property after its closure often refused to go near it after dark. Several reported hearing voices, sometimes laughter, sometimes cries drifting across the surface of stagnant water. A few described seeing figures standing waist-deep in the pool, their outlines shimmering as if submerged, only to disappear when flashlights hit them. One guard swore he saw a group of children running toward the waves, laughing joyfully, before vanishing in mid-stride. The park's history only deepens the unease. During its final years, several tragic accidents reportedly occurred. A young lifeguard drowned during a rescue drill gone wrong. A mechanical failure on a major slide caused injuries that led to the attraction's permanent closure. Some who worked there believed that those who perished never truly left. One former maintenance worker recalled hearing footsteps pacing above him on the slide platforms when he was completely alone. Another recounted hearing his name whispered softly from the direction of the staff locker rooms long after the park had closed for the season. In the years since, Hurricane Bay has drawn the attention of paranormal investigators. Eager to uncover whether the stories hold truth, many have come away convinced that something lingers. One team captured disembodied voices on audio recorders near the wave pool. The voices were faint, but distinctly human fragments of laughter and the phrase, "It's starting," repeated several times. Others documented unexplained temperature drops, flickering equipment, and motion sensors triggered by unseen movement. The slides themselves have also become focal points for strange reports. Locals walking by at night have seen shapes climbing to the top of the towers, silhouetted against the moonlight. When they vanish, faint splashing sounds echo from below, even though the slides are dry and broken. A thrill-seeking pair of urban explorers once entered the park illegally to film a video. They later shared that while exploring the main slide area, they heard what sounded like rushing water, followed by a child's laughter directly behind them. When they turned, the laughter stopped, replaced by the slow creak of the slide's structure. They left immediately, their footage showing a shadow that seemed to dart across the frame. The eerie atmosphere extends beyond the park itself. Drivers passing the entrance late at night have seen what appears to be a lone figure standing near the front gate, sometimes holding what looks like a lifeguard's flotation tube. When headlights shine on the figure, it vanishes instantly, leaving only mist behind. Others report phantom reflections in the glass of the ticket booth faces, staring back from the darkness when no one else is nearby. Some believe Hurricane Bay's hauntings are tied not just to tragedy, but to the emotional imprint left behind. For years, the park was a place of intense energy, joy, fear, adrenaline, and loss, all colliding in one space. Psychologists who study hauntings sometimes refer to such locations as emotional echo chambers, where the strongest feelings of the past seem to replay themselves long after the people have gone. The laughter, the screams, the calls of lifeguards, all of it may still be reverberating in time. Yet others feel there's something more deliberate at work. Paranormal mediums who have visited describe sensing confusion and restlessness. One psychic claimed she felt the presence of a young man, possibly a lifeguard, wandering near the wave pool, searching for someone he couldn't find. She also described hearing the faint echo of children's voices, whispering, "Come play with us," though the park was completely deserted. Despite repeated redevelopment plans, Hurricane Bay's land has remained untouched for years, as if cursed by its own memories. Construction crews who began dismantling the old slides reported frequent malfunctions with their equipment. Tools went missing, and cranes refused to start. One worker even claimed that every morning, the bolts they removed the day before had been mysteriously reattached overnight. Eventually, the project was abandoned, leaving the decaying park to stand as a ghost of what it once was. The slides are cracked, the pools are filled with stagnant rainwater, and the once lively boardwalk is overtaken by weeds. Yet visitors who pass through say the air still feels heavy, almost charged. They describe the faint sound of rushing water, like waves hitting the shore of an unseen sea. Sometimes, in the thick summer air, that sound is joined by laughter light, fleeting, and impossible to place. And as the wind moves through the hollow tubes of the abandoned slides, it creates an eerie, haunting whistle, like the park itself sighing in remembrance. Hurricane Bay, once alive with joy and chaos, now endures as a spectral echo of summers long gone. Some say the ghosts that remain are not trapped but simply replaying their happiest moments, endlessly sliding through the corridors of memory. Others believe they are warning the living to stay away, to leave the past buried beneath the cracked concrete and still waters. Whatever the truth, Hurricane Bay stands as one of New Jersey's most unsettling relics, a place where laughter never fully faded, and where even silence seems to breathe. Once a summer destination brimming with energy, Waterworld in Alabama has long since fallen into decay. The laughter of children, the hum of water pumps, and the smell of chlorine once filled the humid air. Now, the only sounds that echo through the cracked concrete and rusting slides are the wind, the buzz of insects and, if locals are to be believed, something far less explainable. Long after the gates were locked and the pools drained, people who venture near the property speak of phantom splashes, disembodied voices calling for help, and shadowy figures moving where no one should be. When Waterworld first opened in the late 1980s, it was a marvel of its time. Families came from all across the state to cool off beneath the Alabama sun. It offered thrilling slides, a massive wave pool, and a winding lazy river that circled the property like a moat of blue. The park quickly became a local icon, a place of endless summer days. Yet, behind the laughter, there was an unease that grew over the years, rumors of accidents, drownings, and eerie coincidences that began to stain the park's reputation. By the late 2000s, the crowds had thinned. A few bad seasons, rising insurance costs, and mechanical failures led to its closure. The gates were chained, the slides left to bleach and crack in the heat. But as silence reclaimed the space, strange reports began to surface. Locals walking their dogs near the fence claimed to hear the unmistakable sound of water splashing. Though every pool inside was bone dry, others heard faint voices calling out, "Help me," echoing from somewhere within the park, carried by the wind like a desperate plea from another time. One of the first to report something truly unsettling was a security guard hired to monitor the property shortly after its closure. He described hearing footsteps slapping against wet pavement late one night, fast, frantic, and close. When he shone his flashlight toward the sound, there was nothing but puddles from a passing storm. Moments later, he heard a splash, as though someone had dived into the empty pool beside him. He quit the job a week later, refusing to return after hearing whispers near the wave pool that repeated his name in the dark. The wave pool, once Waterworld's main attraction, seems to be the center of most activity. Multiple witnesses describe seeing faint silhouettes standing in the shallows when the moonlight hits just right, tall, still figures that vanish when approached. Even more unsettling are the sounds, faint cries of panic, as if someone were drowning in invisible water. Paranormal investigators who visited the site in 2016 claimed to capture audio of what sounded like a woman gasping for air, followed by a voice whispering, "Too late." There are stories of accidents at the pool that may explain these lingering presences. During its peak years, a teenage lifeguard lost his life attempting to save a young child who had slipped beneath the waves. The tragedy devastated staff, and for weeks after, several lifeguards refused to work near that section. Guests reported hearing splashing at night when the pool was closed, as if the water itself were replaying that final moment over and over again. Farther back in the park stands the Thunder Run slide, a towering spiral that once thrilled riders with its speed. Now rusted and half collapsed, it has become another site of strange activity. Explorers who ventured close to it describe hearing what sounds like water rushing through the slide, even though the pumps haven't operated in years. Others claim to see faint shapes climbing the stairs to the tops, solely deliberately before disappearing near the entrance. A few say that at night, the air around the slide grows suddenly cold, and a faint child's laughter can be heard circling the structure like a whisper caught in the wind. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a pair of urban explorers who entered the property one humid evening to film a video. As they walked through the central corridor between the restrooms and the snack bar, they heard voices calling faintly, overlapping like an echo of a crowd. One of them thought he heard a woman ask, "Can you see me?" The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of chlorine that shouldn't have been there. When they turned to leave, one explorer caught a glimpse of a figure standing by the pool fence, a woman in a faded red swimsuit, her hair dripping wet. She raised her arm as if to wave. When they turned their flashlight toward her, she was gone. Even the surrounding town seems uneasy about Waterworld. Locals avoid driving by after dark, saying the road that runs beside the park gives off an unnatural chill. A delivery driver once claimed he saw what looked like a small crowd inside, illuminated by pale blue light figures, moving as though the park had come alive again for just a moment. When he blinked, the lights were gone. Former employees, too, have their share of strange memories. One woman who worked the concession stand recalls that during her final summer, long before the park closed, she often heard her name whispered when no one was nearby. Another said that every morning, the float tubes she'd neatly stacked at closing were scattered around the deck, dripping wet, though no one had used the pool overnight. The park maintenance crew frequently found footprints leading toward the deep end of the wave pool, stopping abruptly at the edge. When paranormal researchers returned in 2019, they brought specialized audio and electromagnetic sensors. The team recorded several bursts of static that formed faint, human-like syllables. When cleaned up, one seemed to say, "Still here." Another recording captured the sound of a splash and a muffled cry. They also noted sharp temperature drops around the changing rooms and corridors, as if the air itself remembered something cold and fearful. Over time, Waterworld has become a local legend, a ghost story, whispered at diners and high school bonfires. Some say the spirits belong to those who died tragically within its walls. Others believe the hauntings are echoes, a residual imprint of the joy and terror that once filled the park. A few locals go further, claiming the land itself is cursed, that beneath the concrete lies something ancient and restless, disturbed when the park was built. Today, the gates are chained and the sign faded, but at night, passersby still swear they can hear the sound of rushing water. Sometimes it's followed by laughter, faint and fleeting, as if carried from another summer long past. Other times, it's a voice weak, distant, and pleading, calling out from the dark heart of the park. Those who've heard it say, it sounds like someone drowning, over and over again, just beneath the surface of silence. And when the wind blows through the empty slides and crumbling tunnels, it carries a low, mournful whistle, the last echo of Waterworld's once lively soul, trapped forever between memory and haunting. Once alive with laughter and splashing water, Action Water Park in Michigan now sits in silence, its cracked pavement and overgrown slides standing like gravestones of summer days long gone. The sun-bleached signs still cling to rusted fences, and the faint outlines of concession stands linger beneath layers of dust and decay. Yet despite its desolation, locals say the park is far from empty. At night, ghostly children are seen running along the dry wave pool. Shadowy figures slide where no water flows, and strange orbs of light flicker in corners, untouched by electricity. Action Water Park opened in the late 1980s, during Michigan's golden age of family attractions. Built near a cluster of small lakes, it promised endless fun, massive slides that spiraled high into the sky, a sprawling, lazy river, and a popular children's splash area known as Little Lagoon. For a time, It was the pride of the region. Families drove for hours to visit, and the sound of joyful chaos echoed across the surrounding woods. But as years passed, accidents, poor maintenance, and financial trouble chipped away at the park's magic. The first incident came during its third summer. A faulty pump caused a sudden surge in the wave pool, dragging several swimmers beneath the surface. Though lifeguards managed to pull most to safety, a young boy was never revived. His parents sued. The case settled quietly, and the park continued operating. Yet many staff members said something changed after that day. They would arrive in the mornings to find deck chairs shifted into new positions, or faint childlike footprints leading toward the pool long before anyone else had arrived. By the late 1990s, attendance declined. Competing parks offered newer attractions and safer reputations. Rumors began to spread among employees, whispers of unseen hands tugging at life vests, of laughter echoing through empty slides at dawn. One maintenance worker claimed to hear a child calling for help near the same section of the wave pool where tragedy had struck years earlier. When he went to look, the water was calm, but a ripple moved across the surface, as if something unseen had just vanished beneath it. Action Water Park finally closed in the early 2000s after a severe storm damaged several structures. Investors pulled out, and the land was left to rot. The pools were drained, the water pumps removed, and fences erected to keep trespassers away. But the curious and the brave continued to visit, drawn by tales of eerie encounters. One local teenager, who snuck in with friends one summer night, described hearing faint music drifting from the central plaza, the same tune the park once played over its loudspeakers. The group followed the sound to the old snack bar, where a faint glow pulsed through the cracked windows. When they peered inside, they saw what looked like a child's shadow dart across the floor. Moments later, the glow vanished, and the building fell dark again. When they returned to their car, they found small wet footprints leading away from the gate, though it hadn't rained in days. Even by day, the place gives off an unsettling feeling. Nature has swallowed most of the structures, yet certain areas remain strangely untouched. The lazy river's concrete path is lined with weeds, but the water that pools there after rain stays perfectly clear, as if constantly refreshed. Locals claim to see faint ripples move along the channel even when the air is still, like invisible riders drifting along. A photographer who visited to capture the park, SDK, reported seeing movement on his camera, screen shapes like small figures darting between slides. But when he looked up, there was nothing. Later, his photos revealed pale blurs near the slide entrances, resembling translucent silhouettes of children frozen midst. Paranormal researchers have also taken interest in the site. During a 2014 investigation, a team recorded several anomalies. In the children's play zone, their EMF meters spiked unexpectedly, though there were no power sources nearby. Audio recordings captured faint giggling and what sounded like splashes, even though the pools were bone dry. In the maintenance corridor, they caught a voice soft, distant, and male whispering, "Don't run." Many believe the hauntings center around Little Lagoon, where most of the strange sightings occur. The small slides and shallow pools remain eerily preserved, their faded paint still marked with cartoon sea creatures. Visitors often report seeing the figures of children climbing the slides, their outlines shimmering as though reflected on water. At night, glowing orbs float above the lagoon. Some say they look like lanterns, others like the reflection of underwater lights that no longer exist. A former employee named Jason once returned to the park out of nostalgia. He had worked there as a lifeguard in the early 90s and remembered the laughter, the heat, the exhaustion of long summer days. But when he stood near the main pool, he said the air felt heavy, charged with static. The wind carried what sounded like distant cheering, dozens of voices overlapping, calling, laughing. He took a step forward, and everything went silent. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a young boy standing at the pool's edge. The child turned, smiled faintly, and vanished into thin air. Jason left without looking back. Locals who live near the park tell stories of strange lights flickering in the distance. The park has been without electricity for decades, yet on certain nights, A faint blue glow illuminates the slides and towers. Some say it's the reflection of headlights or the moon. Others insist it's something else, an echo of the park's past energy. One farmer, living a mile away, claims he sometimes hears the rush of water late at night, followed by the sharp blast of a lifeguard whistle. There are also tales of shadowy figures wandering the ground stall, shapes moving along the staircases and slides. People describe them as darker than the night itself, gliding silently over the cracked pavement. In the few surviving maintenance logs recovered from storage, there were notes from staff describing strange activity even before the closure. Tools missing and reappearing, gates swinging open without wind, and occasional sightings of movement in areas supposedly locked for safety. Over the years, curiosity seekers have left offerings, children's toys, beach balls, and plastic floaties near the gate. Today, Action Water Park remains fenced off, its decaying slides jutting toward the sky like relics of a forgotten era. Those who pass by at dusk say they can hear faint laughter carried on the breeze, mingling with the creak of rusted metal. Occasionally, a ripple of light flickers across the dry pool's surface, resembling sunlight dancing on water. No one knows why the park feels so alive at night. Some say it's the spirits of those who once found joy there, refusing to let the memories fade. Others believe it's something darker, an echo caught between worlds, looping forever like a ride that never ends. But if you stand by the fence long enough, you might hear it too. The faint splash of unseen swimmers, the whistle of a lifeguard long gone, and the laughter of children who never really left Action Water Park. Once a lively summer destination, filled with laughter, music, and the splashes of families escaping California's heat, Splash Kingdom now stands eerily quiet. The rusted gates and faded murals of cartoon waves and palm trees give little hint of the joy that once filled the air. But those who ventured past its cracked pathways at dusk say the water park never truly closed, that something, or someone, still moves among its decaying attractions. Locals in Redlands tell stories of ghostly figures climbing the long, twisting slides, of laughter echoing in the night when the wind is still, and of lights flickering deep inside structures that haven't had power in years. Once known as Pharaoh's Lost Kingdom before its rebranding, Splash Kingdom had always been a strange mix of fun and mystery, an Egyptian-themed water park that, even during its heyday, carried an aura of unease. Now, with its empty pools and silent towers, that feeling has only deepened. Security guards who patrolled the property after its closure reported hearing splashes from the drained wave pool, the sound of someone diving into water that wasn't there. One former guard, who worked nights alone, claimed he often saw faint figures near the main slide tower. At first, he thought they were trespassers, but when he called out, they vanished, leaving behind only the faint echo of water running somewhere far below. He wasn't the only one. Drone photographers and urban explorers who sneaked in after dark described lights appearing at the top of the slides, small, bluish glows that drifted down as if following the paths of invisible riders. Some claimed to hear distant laughter, not the joyful sound of tourists, but something thinner, stranger laughter that seemed to come from the walls themselves. What unsettled most visitors wasn't the decay, but the feeling of being watched. One photographer said she felt as if dozens of eyes followed her as she moved through the park, especially near the children's splash zone. When she turned around, she caught a glimpse of what looked like small, wet footprints forming in the dust, leading toward the lazy river, then fading before reaching it. Local historians say the land beneath Splash Kingdom has a long history. Before the amusement park, the property was used for farmland, and even earlier, it was home to a small community that vanished after a devastating flood in the early 1900s. A former employee, Maria Alvarez, worked at the park in the late 1990s when it was still Pharaoh's Lost Kingdom. She recalled that even then, workers spoke of strange events. "We'd be closing up after dark," she said, "and sometimes the wave pool would start moving. The pumps were off, everything was shut down, but the water would ripple like something was underneath." She also remembered the locker room lights flickering and radios picking up static-filled whispers. Employees nicknamed him the Pharaoh joking that the park's Egyptian theme had come to life. But after one maintenance worker found tools mysteriously moved and ladders knocked over, the joke lost its humor. We thought maybe someone broke in, until we realized the prints led into a wall and stopped. Even now, years after the park's final closure and partial demolition, visitors say the hauntings haven't stopped. Drivers passing along the nearby highway at night have seen lights glowing from within the ruins, pale, blue and white, like underwater reflections. Some say they've spotted figures standing atop the old slides, their outlines faint but unmistakable. One local teenager told of sneaking into the site with friends. "We heard water running, like the lazy river was still flowing," he said. "Then we saw movement near the tower, someone climbing the stairs. But when we called out, the figure stopped halfway and vanished." Paranormal investigators have tried to capture evidence, and though few are willing to spend a full night inside, several claim to have recorded unexplainable sounds, dripping water, splashes, and voices that seem to call from across the empty park. One audio clip reportedly contains a child's laughter, followed by the sound of a lifeguard's whistle. But the most chilling detail, the whistle's echo continues far longer than any normal sound should. Many locals believe the hauntings are tied to the energy of the place itself. Water parks are built around motion, noise, and human joy, and when that life is suddenly gone, what remains is an emptiness that draws echoes of the past. Others speculate that the spirits of those who loved the park, or perhaps those who met tragic ends there, are still reliving their final summer days. The most unnerving reports come from those who live nearby. They speak of hearing faint screams carried on the wind during hot summer nights, of seeing shadows dart through the parking lot where weeds now grow high between cracks in the pavement. A few have even claimed to see figures standing behind the gates, silhouettes of children in swimsuits, dripping wet, staring silently at the road before fading away. As the sun sets behind the remnants of Splash Kingdom, the air grows heavy, thick with the scent of chlorine and decay. The once bright murals now peel and flake. The slides stand skeletal against the sky, and silence fills the spaces where music once blared. Yet, in that silence, something lingers, whispers of laughter, echoes of splashing water, and the faint shimmer of movement where none should be. For some, it's a haunting reminder that joy can leave traces, that even after a place dies, the energy of those who lived and played there may remain trapped in the cycle of endless summers long gone. Splash Kingdom, in all its ruin, is more than an abandoned water park. It's a reflection of memory itself. Bright, fleeting, and impossible to fully let go. And when the night wind sweeps through its empty slides, it carries with it the laughter of ghosts still unwilling to leave. Once a thriving summer hotspot filled with children's laughter, echoing splashes, and the blaring sound of pop music, Waterworld USA in Connecticut is now little more than a decaying memory. The park, once proud of its towering slides and sprawling wave pools, has fallen silent, or so it seems. Beneath the cracked concrete and the vines reclaiming the rides, locals say something else has taken hold. They claim that when the sun sets over the ruins, the water still moves, laughter still echoes, and ghostly figures emerge from the mist that settles across the abandoned grounds. The park opened in the 1980s, during the height of America's water park boom. Families from all over New England flocked to enjoy its lazy rivers, twisting slides, and state-of-the-art wave pool, the largest in the region at the time. But as the years passed, accidents, financial troubles, and changing ownership plagued the park. By the late 1990s, Waterworld USA had closed for good. What remained was a forgotten shell, a place the living abandoned, but one the dead, it seems, never did. Those who have wandered near the site in the years since describe eerie experiences. Long before reaching the old gates, people report hearing faint echoes, the rhythmic roar of artificial waves, and the faint screams of riders plunging down slides that have long since dried up. Yet when they approach, all is silent. One man, a former employee named Tony, said he drove by the grounds one summer evening and saw movement at the top of the tallest slide. "It looked like someone standing up there," he recalled. "They waved at me, I thought maybe some kids had broken in, but when I blinked, they were gone. The slide was empty, and the lights that had been flickering just went out. The flickering lights are among the most commonly reported phenomena, though the park's electrical grid has been disconnected for decades. Locals swear they've seen sudden bursts of light from the old concession stands or the maintenance building near the wave pool. Sometimes, the glow is accompanied by the faint sound of rushing water that no longer flows. Nearby residents say that on humid nights, the air itself seems charged around the property, as though electricity and moisture mix in unnatural ways. People describe hearing phantom splashes, like someone cannonballing into a pool, followed by the unmistakable echo of laughter. But when they look through the chain-link fence, they see only empty basins, pools filled with nothing but leaves, dust, and memories. The wave pool, once the park's main attraction, has become the center of the hauntings legend. Hikers and urban explorers who've dared to sneak inside claim that the air around it feels different, colder, heavier. One woman described it as standing inside an invisible storm. She said she heard waves begin to rise and crash, though the pool was completely dry. A few seconds later, she heard screams, not screams of terror, but of exhilaration. The sound of people riding artificial waves, unaware that time had long passed them by. There's also a darker side to the story, a rumor that one summer, long before the park's closure, a teenage lifeguard drowned while trying to save a child who had slipped beneath the waves. The child survived, but the lifeguard did not. Though official records of such an event are scarce, many believe this tragedy marked the beginning of Waterworld's decline. Since then, several witnesses claim to have seen a figure standing waist-deep in the empty wave pool at night. A silhouette in an old red swimsuit, motionless except for the gentle movement of one arm, as if waving for help. Paranormal investigators have visited the site, often leaving with more questions than answers. One group from Hartford brought motion detectors and audio recorders, setting them up around the slides and the wave pool. Though no one was visible, their recordings captured faint voices, laughter, a child's cry, and a single phrase whispered repeatedly, "It's still running." Even more chilling were the water sounds, the low, steady hum of pumps and rushing currents, despite there being no power to the park. Explorers also report water that moves on its own. In the center of one slide, a small puddle allegedly ripples every few seconds, as though someone unseen had just slid through. The same has been seen in the lazy river channel, where water occasionally stirs, despite the air being perfectly still. Some claim to have caught these movements on video, though the footage is often distorted or marred by static. Local teenagers, ever drawn to danger and mystery, have made the park a proving ground for courage. They tell stories of hearing ghostly screams from the slides and splashes that seem to come from nowhere. One group swore they saw shadowy figures running along the top of the slide tower, illuminated briefly by flashes of lightning from a distant storm. But when they approached, the figures dissolved into mist. The surrounding woods, once landscaped for picnic areas, now carry an oppressive silence. The wind barely moves through them. Those who've entered describe feeling disoriented, as if the sound of water echoes faintly from all directions. Some claim the sound grows louder the closer they get to the wave pool, until it becomes deafening, and then, suddenly, stops. It's as though the park wants to remind them it still lives, but only on its own terms. Over the years, there have been efforts to redevelop the land, but each plan mysteriously falls through. Some say investors simply lose interest. Others whisper that the land itself rejects being disturbed, that workers who come to survey the site experience sudden accidents, or that their equipment fails inexplicably. One construction manager reportedly left the property and never returned, saying only, "There's something under the water that isn't gone." Today, Waterworld USA stands as a relic of another time, a decaying monument to summer joy and sudden silence. The slides, faded to ghostly white, curve like bones against the sky. The wave pool lies cracked and dry, yet those who pass by swear they can still hear it moving. And when fog rolls in from the nearby river, it gathers thickest around the park, as though drawn to the memory of water that once danced and churned there. For locals, It's a reminder that some places never truly close, that laughter, fear, and tragedy leave echoes that cannot be silenced. Waterworld USA may be gone, but on certain nights, when the mist rises and the wind carries faint screams through the trees, it feels as though the park still runs, not for the living, but for the spirits who can never leave the water behind. Wild Water and Wheels, once a bustling amusement park in Pennsylvania, now stands as a quiet relic of summers long past. Its waters still and slides empty. Visitors who wander near the abandoned park report a disquieting atmosphere, a sense that the echoes of joy and laughter from decades ago never truly left. The park, which once drew families from across the state for water rides and roller coasters, has fallen into decay. But locals insist that the spirits of its past patrons and employees linger, continuing their routines long after the gates close for the final time. Opened in the late 1980s, Wild Water and Wheels was celebrated for its combination of water attractions and amusement rides, including towering slides, a wave pool, and classic thrill rides. The park promised endless fun, yet it faced numerous challenges: declining attendance, accidents, and changing ownership. By the early 2000s, it was shuttered and abandoned, leaving behind a maze of empty concrete paths, rusted railings, and stagnant pools. But the stories of those who venture close suggest that the park's closure was never final in a more spectral sense. Locals often recount seeing shadowy figures climbing the old slides. Even though the metal staircases are corroded and unsafe, some claim they've witnessed shapes moving up as if preparing to ride. These figures are translucent, barely visible in the fading light, yet their movement is unmistakably human. One local resident, a former park employee, recalled seeing such an apparition on a misty evening. "I was driving past the park, and on the biggest slide, I saw someone climbing. It didn't make sense. The stairs were rotted, and nobody should have been there. But I swear, I saw them reach the top and disappear into thin air." Alongside these sightings, faint laughter is frequently reported echoing across the park. The sounds are not continuous, nor do they seem to belong to any specific person. They carry the high-pitched tone of children, yet also a strangely adult cadence, as if combining the joy and worry of the park's past employees. Hikers and urban explorers who venture into the park's grounds report that the laughter sometimes rises and falls in intensity, creating the impression that the park is momentarily alive, only to be silent again moments later. One visitor described it as a chorus of echoes, bouncing off slides and empty pathways, like a memory insisting on being remembered. Abandoned concession stands add to the park's unnerving atmosphere. Shadowy figures have been seen near these long empty buildings, appearing to interact with unseen patrons or stacking non-existent goods on rusted counters. Lights flicker in the darkened interiors, though the electricity has been disconnected for years. Some explorers have reported feeling cold spots, sudden drops in temperature, accompanied by the sense of being watched. Others describe an almost tangible presence, brushing past them as they move through the corridors between slides and attractions. The park's wave pool is another locus of paranormal activity. Visitors claim that even on the stillest days, the water seems to ripple without cause. Some have reported seeing small figures in the pool's reflection, children who should not exist in a now empty basin. The pool, though long drained of mechanical life, seems to replay the excitement of summers past, with phantom splashes and the occasional shout cutting through the silence. Several paranormal investigators have visited the park to document these occurrences. Using motion detectors, audio recorders, and thermal cameras, they've recorded phenomena that defy conventional explanation. One team captured faint footprints appearing briefly on slides, only to vanish before anyone could approach. Audio equipment picked up laughter, whispers, and the sounds of running water, though the area was completely devoid of life. Thermal cameras occasionally detected cold anomalies in areas that should have matched ambient temperature, further reinforcing the park's reputation as a haunted site. The stories extend beyond explorers. Locals who live near the property often hear noises at night, particularly during humid summer evenings. The faint, irregular creak of metal, the rush of water, or a distant scream sometimes wakes residents. only for them to find nothing upon investigation. Drivers passing the park have reported shadows crossing empty lots, disappearing the moment they attempt to focus on them. In some cases, those who linger too long report a sensation of being followed, though no one is in sight. The park's architecture seems to amplify its hauntings. Twisting slides, dark tunnels, and abandoned platforms create corridors of uncertainty. Fog that settles over the grounds in early morning or late evening lingers longer than natural, curling around structures and masking movement. Many explorers report disorientation, claiming that paths they thought familiar suddenly seem to shift or lead nowhere. Some interpret this as an otherworldly influence, a manipulation of space by lingering spirits who refuse to leave. Even the parking lots contribute to the eerie tales. Rusting signs, overgrown pavement cracks, and empty rows of faded asphalt are sometimes disturbed without cause. Locals have reported seeing shadowy figures running between abandoned vehicles or glimpses of apparitions reflected in car windows. Some visitors have felt compelled to leave suddenly, driven by an unexplainable sense of urgency, as though the park itself discourages prolonged observation. Despite its desolation, Wild Water and Wheels remains a site of fascination for paranormal enthusiasts. Its combination of childhood nostalgia, sudden abandonment, and unexplained activity creates a potent setting for ghost stories. Witnesses report that the park retains an energy that is both playful and malevolent, the joy of its past mingling with the sadness of neglect and loss. The phenomena are sporadic, unpredictable, and often fleeting, leaving a sense that the park exists in both the past and present simultaneously. Water slides, once vibrant with summer fun, now serve as conduits for lingering spirits. Shadowy figures climb them endlessly. Laughter drifts through empty corridors, and cold spots linger near concession stands. While the physical park may have decayed, its essence, the echoes of visitors and employees long gone, persists, haunting the grounds. Those who venture close leave with a story, a shiver, and a sense that some places, even after abandonment, never truly closed. Wild Water and Wheels in Pennsylvania stands as a reminder that echoes of joy, fear, and routine can linger far beyond the lives that created them. It is a park where the living are welcome to watch, but the spirits remain, riding slides, roaming paths, and ensuring that the memories of laughter, splashes, and summer adventures never fully fade. These 25 haunted water parks across the U.S. remind us that even places of joy and laughter can hide darkness. From ghostly children and phantom staff to slides that move on their own, these parks are filled with restless spirits who never left the water. Thank you for exploring these haunted water parks with us. Subscribe, like, and click the bell to continue uncovering America's most haunted places, where the fun never truly ends, but the spirits never leave.